this Tuesday, October 13th meeting of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. I'll remind members of the public that have requested to speak to wait to dial into the meeting until the item is called. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Jacob?
Here.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Present.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher here.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Here.
Chairman Cox?
Here. In order to get started with today's proceedings, we're going to start off with an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll be leading the Pledge of Allegiance, but to lead us in the invocation, we're honored to have with us today Rabbi Mendel Polachenko from the Chabad Carmel Valley Del Mar. Rabbi?
Hi, good morning. Bless us, Father, together as one, as we seek to express our love for kindness and bring peace into the world. This week, we celebrated Simchat Torah, when we end the cycle of learning the Bible and we start anew. And the way we celebrate it is unique. We dance in circles. You would think that the learning celebrations should be intellectual, should be we sit and learn, yet we look for a way to unify everybody with joy. When people are learning, there is different levels of intellect. When we are dancing together as a circle, it's just like a wedding band that the groom gives the bride. There is no beginning and no end, symbolizing absolute fusion and unity. The same is when we all happy and dance and celebrate together, we can be one and bring the much needed unity to the world today. The great Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson was asked once, how can you remain calm and happy in difficult times? His answer was, I focus on the task at hand. When I'm doing something, when I'm with my family, I'm 100% with my family. When I'm at work, I'm dedicated to what I do. And I know that God's blessing will be upon me when I give all my heart and soul and concentration to the task at hand. We're united today to make this a better world. We're committed to express love and kindness, and that effort will be blessed by our merciful Father with success as we all work together to create a better world, a united world in where His kindness and our compassion work together in unity. I asked everybody to take a brief moment of silence and commit to do one act of kindness today, something that wasn't planned, something new, a commitment to make this a better world. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be together with you today.
Rabbi Polachenko, thank you so much for being a part of our proceedings this morning. We thank you and the Chabad Carmel Valley Del Mar for your participation this morning. Thank you. Would you now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America? Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now proceed into our presentations and proclamations for today. The first two proclamations are one that I'll be presenting, and I'm honored to present them both. The first one is honoring Hispanic Heritage Month. And to receive that proclamation, we're pleased to have with us Pedro Anaya. I think Pedro's hopefully going to be joining us visually, if not by phone. But this month-long period from September 15th through October 15th has been designated as National Hispanic Heritage Month to recognize the outstanding contributions of Hispanic Americans across the United States. The Hispanic Americans have made significant contributions to the life and history of our country in all areas, including the arts and sciences, sports, entertainment, and business and government. Throughout history, Hispanic Americans have defended the principles of liberty and have fought to serve peace, secure peace for our nation and other nations. For 40 years, the Mexicoyotl Indio Cultural Center, or as it's known as MICC, has been dedicated to teaching and preserving the indigenous cultures of Mexico and the southwestern United States. Through weekly free workshops in traditional Azteca dance and arts, MICC shares these traditions throughout the San Diego region, where workshops are provided to all ages to understand communities, to underserved communities in the county of San Diego. Each year, MICC hosts more than 300 dancers from throughout the United States and Mexico to participate in dance ceremonials in the neighborhoods of Barrio Logan and San Ysidro, providing a full weekend of Azteca dance and music for San Diego County residents to enjoy. The County of San Diego is committed to recognizing and honoring those organizations dedicated to the best ideals of public service. And the Mexicoyotl Indio Cultural Center is one such worthy organization. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by myself as chair and all the members of the Board of Supervisors on this 13th day of October 2020 that they commend the Mexicoyotl Indio Cultural Center for 40 years of service, preserving the history and culture of the Chicano Mexican community. And we hereby declare the month-long period of September 15th through October 15th, 2020 to be Hispanic Heritage Month throughout San Diego County. We have a proclamation that we will be presenting to Pedro Anaya on behalf of the County of San Diego. And I'm not sure whether Pedro is on the line, but I hope he is.
He is on the line. Pedro, if you'd like to press *6 to unmute yourself now, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go
Can you
ahead,
hear me?
Pedro. Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this recognition. And on behalf of the families of the Mexicoyotl Indio Culture Center, we appreciate this. And our group is made up of San Diego families here in the county who, for the last 40 years, have worked diligently to preserve these traditions that we've learned. And so we thank the Board of Supervisors for this recognition. And in particular, we thank you, Chairman Cox, for your support over those few years. And we look forward to continuing this work and partnering with the county to bring these traditions and to celebrate our community. Thank you very much.
Pedro, on behalf of the county, again, thank you very much, and we'll make sure we get this proclamation to you right away. Thank you. The second proclamation that I have this morning is one which is honoring foster youth FAFSA Completion Month. And FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And I believe Dr. Paul Gotthold, the superintendent of the County Office of Education, is online to receive this proclamation. And I'll go ahead and get started with the reading of the proclamation, and then we'll give an opportunity to the superintendent to respond. San Diego County is home to nearly 2,500 youth in foster care and serves over 500 youth between the ages of 16 and 21. As foster youth age out of care, they struggle to access the education needed to maintain economic self-sufficiency and long-term well-being. Evidence shows that receiving financial aid is a strong predictor of college success, positively impacting academic performance, transfer rates, and graduation rates. Yet, foster youth have historically received financial aid at rates much lower than their non-foster youth peers. Last year in San Diego County, the number of foster youth students who completed the free application for federal student aid was significantly lower than the non-foster youth, and only 28% of high school seniors in foster care completed the FAFSA compared to 50% of all high school seniors. The San Diego County Office of Education participation in the Foster Youth FAFSA Challenge seeks to change that by increasing the FAFSA completion rates for high school seniors in foster care. The FAFSA Challenge kicked off on October 1st and is a collaboration effort between the San Diego County Office of Education's Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program and community partners, including the John Burton Advocates for Youth, the County of San Diego Child Welfare Services, school districts, local providers, and caregivers. San Diego County Office of Education's participation and leadership in FAFSA completion efforts for foster youth will ensure that these youth have equal opportunity to attend college and achieve their dreams. The County of San Diego is committed to recognizing those organizations and individuals that are committed to advancing the ideals, best ideals of public service, and Foster Youth FAFSA Completion Month is one such worthy observance. It's for all of these reasons that on behalf of myself and my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, we want to commend the John Burton Advocates for Youth for outstanding service leadership commitment to the foster youth of San Diego County, and do hereby declare the month of October to be Foster Youth FAFSA Completion Month throughout San Diego County. And that is a mouthful, but I am very pleased to present this proclamation to Superintendent Gothold, and I hope he is on the line somewhere.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. And on behalf of our Board of Education, just want to sincerely thank the Board of Supervisors for their continued support of our most vulnerable children. Our staff is doing an incredible job of ramping up efforts across this county, not just with our own programs, but within the districts to identify and successfully assist foster youth in this endeavor. What we know is that students who participate in just completing the FAFSA alone, 90%, over 90% enroll in college or university within a year, as opposed to 45%. So this is a priority for our office. We certainly are more than appreciative of the continued support, the Board of Supervisors, and also Chairman Cox, the creation and support at San Pasqual, where we house, as you know, many of our residential foster youth. It boasts a college-going rate that is just certainly incredible, and something that we're trying to scale across this county. It is a commitment for us, and I just want to thank our staff for the wonderful job, Mindy, and the rest of our foster and homeless team who are committed to this and do whatever it takes to help our most vulnerable kids. So thank you so much for this recognition.
Well, Paul, we'll make sure that you get this proclamation forthwith. And again, we want to thank you and the County Office of Education for all the great things that you're doing to help our foster youth. They certainly need and deserve our support. And hopefully through this program, we'll get more of them the support they need in order to continue their education after high school. So thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
The next proclamation, we have a number of them today, which are going to be honoring Teachers of the Year. And I'll first call on our Vice Chairman, Jim Desmond, to present a proclamation to Jose Mello from the Valley Center Middle School. Vice Chairman Desmond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It is my honor to present this award today, or to Jose Mello, and we're going to be honoring 4 other teachers today, but Jose is one of 5 local educators selected as Teacher of the Year in San Diego County. And the annual, it's an Academy Award style show, which will air as a pre-recorded show celebrating San Diego County's 26,000 public school teachers, with a spotlight on 40 Teacher of the Year nominees, nominees representing the San Diego County, all San Diego County school districts. This school year is tremendously different than the past with the learning environment. That things have changed here in COVID-19. Teachers such as Jose Mello has shown their commitment to their students and to their teaching and lifelong learning. Jose Mello is a 6th to 8th grade dual language, social studies and English language development teacher for the Valley Center, Palma Unified School District at Valley Center Middle School. Jose found his love for teaching after participating in a program that recruits college students with migrant backgrounds to work as teachers' assistants. We want to congratulate Jose on his great commitment to education and learning to our students, particularly in these trying times. And the County of San Diego is committed to recognizing and honoring individuals who are dedicated to the best ideals of public service. And Jose Melo is one such worthy individual. So now today, Chairman Greg Cox and all the members of the San Diego County Boards of Supervisors commend Jose Melo for his commitment to students, family, and faculty at Valley Center Middle School, and for being selected Teacher of the Year in San Diego County, and do hereby declare today to be Jose Melo Day throughout San Diego County. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I believe Jose is on the line. So would you like to say a few words?
Hello, good morning. This is Jose Melo. Thank you so much, San Diego Board of Supervisors. Thank you so much for this wonderful recognition. I accept this recognition on behalf of all the passionate and hardworking San Diego County educators who are working harder than ever to reach their students during these challenging times. We educators, we wear multiple hats. We are mentors, counselors, parent figures, and role models to our students. When we are faced with challenges, we work together to overcome them with courage and grace. We use our ingenuity and problem-solving skills to adapt to new situations and never lose track of our mission to educate all students. Thank you to teachers who are working harder than ever. And additionally, I want to thank students. I applaud their determination and flexibility during virtual learning. Despite the challenges students face, they show up to virtual classes with a smile and eager to learn. This is admirable. Students are the reason we teach, and it is an honor to serve the students and families of San Diego County. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jose, and congratulations. The next proclamations are going to be presented by Supervisor Diane Jacob, who has 2 Teachers of the Year. First, Christine Hill from Ramona High School, and then Jay Tweet from El Capitan High School. Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm especially proud and honored to have 2 of the 5 Teachers of the Year in District 2. And especially as a former teacher myself, it's a great honor for me to present these proclamations to them. First, to Christine Hill. Teachers such as Christine have shown commitment to students, teaching, and lifelong learning. She is a 9th to 12th grade career technical education engineering teacher for the Ramona Unified School District for Ramona High School. Christine Hill believes that failures should be celebrated because only by failing can we learn. Her approach to teaching allows her students to go beyond what they think is possible, developing a love for learning and engineering and enjoy a bright future with amazing opportunities. Christine is also known for starting a program created by the Cal Poly Pomona College of Engineering called Femineers. She has gathered outside funding, engaging professionals from the field, and is seeing 98% of her graduating seniors pursuing their education in a STEM field. That's pretty phenomenal. And Christine, since the County of San Diego too, is committed to recognizing and honoring individuals that are dedicated to the best ideals, not just to public service, but to our children who are our future. You are certainly one such worthy individual. Now it's my distinct honor on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors to officially commend Christine Hill for her commitment to the students, the families, and the faculty at Ramona High School, and for being selected as Teacher of the Year in San Diego County. And we do hereby declare this day to be Christine Hill Day throughout San Diego County. Congratulations, Christine. And now on to Jay Tweet.
Yeah, Supervisor Jacob, I think Christine is online here now.
Okay, you want to do those right now or after I'm done?
Sure, why don't we go ahead and do them in order?
Okay, sounds good.
So Christine,
Thank you.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I wanted to thank the Board of Supervisors for this tremendous honor. I was an engineer for 15 years before becoming a teacher, and in my entire career, I never worked with another woman. So when I came to Ramona High School and started our CTE engineering pathway, I wanted to make sure that all my students were learning by doing. Through work-based learning, they get to step out of their comfort zone and try things they've never done before. My goal is to get more underrepresented students involved in STEM careers. So through Femineers program that I was able to start with the help of San Diego State University and Cal Poly Pomona, girls are given the opportunity to learn to design, program, and be creative in an environment where they're encouraged to experiment and to fail. By doing this, they very quickly find that from each failure, they learn something new and will try more daring things the next go around. It is always so exciting to see their confidence grow and see the amazing things that they produce. We need to ensure that all students are given these types of opportunities so that they can leave high school with hands-on skills, the confidence to follow their passions, and the perseverance to reach their goals. So again, I want to thank the board for this honor and all your efforts in making San Diego County a great place for all our students to learn and grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Now I'd like to honor Jay Tweet, the second Teacher of the Year in District 2. Jay, as Christine, has also shown his commitment to students teaching and lifelong learning. Jay Tweet is a 12th grade history social science teacher for the Grossmont Union High School District at El Capitan High School. And for 15 years, Jay has been teaching history and economics to help students apply difficult concepts to their everyday lives to enhance understanding. Jay is also known for spearheading policy changes to increase the number of students who could take AP and honors courses, co-founding one of the first triple immersion high school programs in the country, altering his own grading policies to help increase student attendance, helping improve internal culture, as well as community perception about the school, and perfectly constructing a learning environment that fosters academic excellence and understanding. And Jay, like the others, this county is committed to recognizing and honoring those individuals that are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and in this case, especially to our students. And you, Jay Tweed, are one such worthy individual. Now it's my great honor on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors to recognize you officially and to commend you as one of the 5 Teachers of the Year in San Diego County. And we do hereby declare this day to be Jay Tweet Day throughout San Diego County. Jay, congratulations, and we are all very proud of you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful honor. I'm sorry if my voice is a little bit muffled right now. I'm wearing a mask because I'm in a classroom with 7 students, which is kind of exciting. Being back in the classroom, I want to thank the entire County Board of Supervisors for the work that you guys have done in this during this pandemic to help kind of bridge the gap in our society and help us continue functioning as much as we can. I myself am a product of the San Diego City school system, was a beach kid who grew up in Pacific Beach going to school there. And so coming out to Lakeside and teaching here was definitely, it's a kind of a different world out in East County. And one of the things you very quickly learn is that, everything that's getting done is going through Diane Jacobs' office. So I especially want to thank Diane Jacobs for this honor. As we look at what's happening in education right now because of the coronavirus, in economics, we often talk about unintended consequences and how, a lot of times there's things that happen that we can't really foresee and how we can learn from those experiences. And I'm hoping that one of the things that we take away from this time period in our history where we have these radical changes that have happened in a very short period of time, is that, so many of our students are struggling because they are so dependent on their teachers for their education. And while that makes me happy as a teacher to know that my students, they need me and that they want to be around me to learn, it also makes me have to kind of question what we've done as an education system, where if we have so many students that are so passive in their learning, what does that say about, the job that we're doing? My hope is that through this pandemic, we are able to figure out ways to help our students become more independent and more responsible, and that we can do a better job of preparing these kids for the future. So again, thank you for this honor, and thank you for the work that you've done.
Well, congratulations, Jay. And we have 2 more Teachers of the Year proclamations to give. The next one will be given by Supervisor Kristen Gaspar, and that's for Ara Allard from Del Mar Hills Elementary School. Supervisor?
Well, today it's my pleasure to honor Ara Allard. She is a 4th grade music teacher for the Del Mar Union School District at Del Mar Hills Elementary School. As a teacher of 20 years, Ara is constantly reflecting on and refining her practices, which has helped her remain effective while teaching remotely during the pandemic. One of her guiding principles has always been to embrace change. My, is that important right now? Ara Allard is known for making social and emotional learning a high priority, giving students projects focused on design thinking, setting high expectations, providing equal opportunity for all backgrounds and abilities, building a community with love, kindness, generosity, giving opportunities to students to stretch them out of their comfort zones in a safe and supportive environment, while inspiring them to be the best version of themselves and lifelong learners. The County of San Diego is always committed to recognizing individuals that are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and Ara Allard is one such worthy individual. So now, of course, be it proclaimed by our chairman and members of the County Board of Supervisors on this 13th day of October that we commend you, Ara Allard, for your commitment to the students, families, and faculty at Del Mar Hills Elementary School, and for being selected as Teacher of the Year in San Diego County. And it's my pleasure to declare this day to be Ara Allard Day throughout San Diego County. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gaspar and Board of Supervisors, for this honor. Learning and facilitating learning is truly my passion, and to be honored for doing what you love is truly a gift and a joy. And I have to tell you, when I told my 4th grade class about the proclamation today, I am now a total celebrity in their eyes. So thank you for giving me that credibility with my students today. I have always embraced change and innovation as part of my teaching practice. And I actually began my career as a music teacher and changed to the general education classroom, teaching 3rd and then 4th grade about 10 years ago. And this year, as you mentioned, we are all having to embrace change. I try to reimagine learning opportunities that will engage students with content in ways that will have them thinking and discussing and applying their learning. As you mentioned, I'm now distance teaching and my students are distance learning. And this means I have never met my 26 4th graders face to face. Nevertheless, thanks to technology, I've come to know their interests, their learning styles, their families, their strengths, and every single one of their pets. My students are eager, and sometimes it feels like they're ready to jump right out of their Zoom boxes with the excitement of what they're sharing and learning. They continually surprise me with not only their ability to adapt to new situations, but with their desire to think and talk about new ideas. We are building our community with breakout rooms and Friday fun clubs, sharing art and Lego creations. Connecting with my students looks different at the moment for me, but in many ways, I feel like I have a deeper understanding of my kids. The lessons I'm learning this year will be evident in my classroom for years to come. These are not easy times, and what teachers are being asked to do is difficult. I believe that together we can do hard things. And as a Teacher of the Year, it's my hope that I can help support other teachers with this endeavor. Thank you so much for your time today and for this great honor. It is something I will always cherish. Thank you.
Well, those 26 kiddos better be nice today. You let them know it's your special day.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ara. And our last Teacher of the Year proclamation will now be given by Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, and this is going to be to Paula Richardson from Wilson Middle School.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Today it brings me great pleasure to recognize Paula Richardson, the 6th through 8th grade music teacher for San Diego Unified's Wilson Middle School, which is located in the 4th Supervisorial District. Paula is one of San Diego County Office of Education's Teacher of the Year and will be honored at the 30th annual Cox Presents a Salute to Teachers on November 21st. Paula is committed to her craft. She is committed to her teachers. She believes that having a curriculum that's inclusive of creativity and traditional education, the kids come out with a more rounded and more balanced education. In addition to all of her duties, regular duties as a teacher, Paula also directs the after-school theater and musical production, is piloting a new mariachi club, which is one of the first in the district. In finding out literacy was an issue at her campus, she helped by incorporating reading lessons into the music curriculum, increasing access to books and reading materials for students. Paula, like all of this year's honorees, have made the best out of a difficult situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. Albert Einstein said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. I want to thank Paula for keeping moving, for holding steady, for all of her students, and keeping everyone moving in the right direction through this difficult year, but also for her 13 years of teaching so far and the work ahead of her that remains, and the everyday commitment to serving one of the most vital roles in our society, being a teacher. And so on behalf of Chairman Greg Cox and all the members of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, it is my honor to proclaim the 13th day of October 2020 as Paula Richardson Day throughout San Diego County. Congratulations, Paula. Thank you for everything you do. And we will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors for this proclamation. This is a huge honor for me, my family, and my colleagues at Wilson Middle School and within San Diego Unified School District. I come from a musical family. Music is part of our family traditions. Many families have their own traditions, but my family, we make music. We get together and we play instruments and we sing. We talk about music. It's how we connect with each other. This connection through music is what I am teaching my students. I want to instill in my students a love and appreciation for music. My own music education gave me a sense of belonging, and I want to provide that inclusive environment to my own students. My husband is also a musician and a music teacher. He is actually my substitute today, so I could be here. We have 2 children of our own that are learning music as well. And because of this, I believe every child deserves an arts education as part of the core curriculum. And I am so hopeful that students will have the opportunity to learn music through their years in our schools. Thank you again, Supervisor Fletcher and the Board of Supervisors for this honor.
Well, congratulations to Paula and all of our Teachers of the Year. As a former teacher, and I know Supervisor Jacob was a former teacher, there's no finer profession. Both my parents were teachers. It's a great profession, and you all do a great job, and we sincerely thank you for the work that you do each and every day. Our last proclamation this morning is going to be presented by Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, and this will be to the San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group, and the founder of that group is Michelle Harvey, and she's going to be accepting this proclamation from Supervisor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends people wear masks when out in public, when around people who do not live within their household. Masks are an incredibly effective tool to slow the spread of coronavirus. And today, I want to recognize Michelle Harvey, the founder of San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group. 8 months ago, in March, Michelle was looking to do her part to help keep people safe during the pandemic. She pulled out the sewing machine she had bought last Christmas for her and her sons. They had been learning to sew by watching videos on YouTube. After hearing from a friend of hers who was a nurse that they were accepting handmade masks, she got to work. Knowing that making large quantities would only be possible without the help of others, Michelle turned to social media and created the San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group. With the help of some 1,800 volunteers, they have now made more than 50,000 hand-sewn masks. Michelle and her San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group have provided these to hospitals, military personnel, first responders, retirement homes, essential workers, Native American tribes, the homeless, and schools, amongst many other groups and organizations. Michelle has even helped other people start volunteer mask groups in other states and in other countries. And Michelle didn't just stick to a standard pattern for these masks. She got creative, developed her own pattern for a special window mask that was requested by Rady Children's Hospital and a school for the deaf in Brooklyn, New York. These masks have since been requested by many other medical professions and schools and are one of the trickier for the members to make, but are certainly important for folks who need that ability to communicate. Michelle and the San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group aren't just creating masks, they are creating community bonds. They're determined to help each other. When you go on the Facebook page, they're sharing materials, patterns, and other tips. And most important to all of the members, their actions are helping slow the spread of COVID-19. Their actions are helping to protect people. Their actions are saving lives. And so on behalf of Chairman Greg Cox and all the members of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, I want to commend Michelle and the San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group for their outstanding service, leadership, and commitment to helping residents during this pandemic, and officially declare the 13th day of October 2020 to be San Diego Face Mask Sewing Group Day throughout San Diego County. I would now like to turn it over to Michelle, who I believe is with us here today.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Fletcher, for this honor. Wow, that I couldn't have said it better myself. You've included everything that makes me so proud to be a part of this team and be a part of this group. Something else, I wanted to add, I found myself this summer with my son. My son spent 2 months at Rady Children's Hospital unexpectedly. And through that time, not only did the group support me and reach out, but they helped keep this group going full force. We didn't miss a beat. We kept masks going. And, I was able to see firsthand just how important these masks are. So I'm just incredibly proud to have the opportunity to create this group, to be a part of this team. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for this honor. We're going to continue making masks as long as they're needed and just keep donating and protecting people. And thank you so much. We truly appreciate this honor.
Thank you.
We'll now proceed into public communications. My understanding is we have 2 public communications, and I'll ask our clerk of the board, Andrew Potter, to go ahead and call those up this time.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. We have one written request that was submitted by the public. The comment is from Lynette Allison. It reads, "You all do not have a public comment selection to check off for when we'd like to call in and comment, yet you say you do. We need to speak with someone over at Mr. David Estrella's office. He and his staff are discriminating against my disabled son who holds a housing choice voucher." The next comment is from an individual who requested to call in. This individual will have 2 minutes to address the board, and we'd ask you to please state your name for the audio record, and you will hear a beep when your time is up. Aaron, if you could please identify the caller.
Yes, the last 4 digits are 7623, and please hit *6 to unmute yourself at this time.
So I am Miss Lynette Allison. I had to go through many channels to get the phone number to call in and the PIN number. I spoke with 8 people. I've been up since 5:45 trying to figure this all out, how to call in and comment. Yes, you read my comment correctly. Mr. David Estrella's office of the County of Housing Authority refuses to communicate directly with myself on behalf of my disabled adult son, who has been in and out of the hospital on 5150 Hose. He has a housing choice voucher that he ported to San Diego with, and it is ridiculous that we're having a strenuous time with trying to communicate with these folks. His voucher was ported to San Diego March 27th. So it's October 13th, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months. He should be in a place recovering and getting well. That's the end of my comment for now.
Okay, thank you very much. We cannot take any action directly on public communications, but they will be referred, your concerns will be referred to our staff for follow-up. So thank you for your comments this morning. We'll move on to the approval of the statement of proceedings and the minutes for the regular meeting of September 29th and the Board of Supervisors special meeting of September 21st and September 22nd. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar. Is there any further discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, we'll move on to the formation of the consent calendar. I'm going to suggest that we have item 13 and 14 heard right after we get the update on the COVID-19 response, which is item number 3. And then it's my understanding item number 4 is going to be a drawing for the selection of the first 8 members of the Redistricting Committee. We will do that at the conclusion of the balance of the proceedings for this morning. So with that, let me start off by asking if there's any items that have been pulled by the public that has not already been identified.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 3 is a presentation item. Item 4, as you indicated, requires the board to observe a random drawing. Therefore, this item cannot go on consent. Item 13 has been pulled by the public, as you noted. Item 14 has been pulled by the public. And item 17, our closed session matters, will be considered at the conclusion of the board's public session. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed on the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Very good. Let me start with Supervisor Jacob and ask you if you have any items to pull or additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. None of those two, so I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. Supervisor Gaspar.
Second the motion, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Fletcher.
No items to pull.
Okay. Vice Chairman Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no items to pull, but just a couple of quick comments on item 1. This is for authorization for a contract improving criminal justice response to crime victim services. I want to thank our district attorney, Summer Steffen, and her staff for including Michelle Bush and the rest of the team for so diligently working to get one safe place closer to opening. The North County is very pleased to be home for this soon-to-be outstanding county resource. And the inclusion of Palomar Health Forensic Services at one safe place will make it far easier for victims to receive needed services. Palomar Health Services does a great job, and I'm extremely supportive of the entire effort, and much thanks goes to our district attorney, Summer Steffen. On item 2, the CDBG item, I wanted to commend our housing and community development services, David Australia, Annabelle Poole, and the rest of the staff for their work with the fraternity house here in North County and amending the annual plan to allocate funding for roof repairs. I want to thank staff for going the extra mile to get and going out of their way to get this done. It's very much appreciated by Fraternity House and residents in North County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Desmond. I have no additional items to pull. So we do have a motion by Supervisor Jacobs, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar, to approve the consent calendar. Would the clerk please identify those items we'll be voting on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will be voting on all items except items 3, 4, 13, 14, and 17 are closed session matters. With that, Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, item 3 is a presentation by our staff. It's our regular update on the COVID-19 response, where we'll need to ratify actions and authorize any other actions necessary to address the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll ask our Chief Administrative Officer if she has any introductory comments, and then we'll get right into the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, before the Chief Administrative Officer begins the presentation, any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. We're here today to update you on the latest developments in the COVID-19 response. We have successfully maintained our status on California's blueprint for a safe reopening, resulting in the continued opening of a variety of non-essential businesses. Today's presentation will feature our Public Health Officer, Dr. Wilma Wooten, who will provide a public health update as well as the county's status on the state's tiered system and what that looks like locally. Additionally, Dr. Wooten will provide an introduction to the state's new metric, health equity. We'll also be joined by Nick Mascione, our Test, Trace, and Treat Director, to provide an update on our testing efforts. As part of that, Jeff Johnson, our Chief of Epidemiology and Immunization Services branch, will be discussing disease investigation activities and introducing our local partners in disease investigation efforts. Finally, Andy Pease, our Incident Command Finance Chief, will provide a brief update on spending estimates. Without further ado, I'll welcome Dr. Wooten.
Thank you, Don. Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. Since the last presentation to your board on September 29th, an additional 4,012 cases have been reported for a total of 50,746 positive COVID-19 cases as of 11:59 Sunday, October 11th. This table provides a summary of these cases with a breakdown by age, gender, hospitalization, ICU admission, and deaths. 58% of cases are between the ages of 20 to 49 years of age. 29,284, or almost 58% of the cases, again, are between the ages of 20 and 49 years of age. In the next slide, of the total number of cases, 3,692, or 7.3%, have been hospitalized. Of this number, approximately 72% are over the age of 50, and 854, or 1.7%, of the total number of cases, and 23% of those hospitalized had to be admitted to the ICU. In this next slide, and focusing on death demographics, 774, 95% of the total number of those who have died, 826, were above the age of 50 years of age. 57% were male, 43% were female. And with regards to race and ethnicity, the majority were Hispanic, representing 49% of the total deaths, and 95% had underlying medical conditions, with the top three conditions being hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease. In the next slide, the epi curve shows cases by onset of illness. As is shown, starting in the middle of June, cases saw a sharp incline, which was due to reopening of business operations on June 3rd. In mid-July, a decline in cases was seen after the state's restrictions were imposed. Cases leveled off in mid-August and then again began to slightly increase, where cases have ranged between 200 and 400 cases daily. In the late August, the Blueprint for a Safer Economy was introduced, with certain sectors opening up, and cases have been maintained. In the last 14 days of the epi curve, keep in mind that this is the incubation period, so more cases would be anticipated. As previously shared in the next slide, the Blueprint for a Safer Economy is a plan for loosening or tightening restrictions on business operations focused on specific public health metrics, which initially included the case rate and testing positivity for the overall county. The tier framework lays out the metrics and thresholds that each county must meet in order to open more and more parts of the economy, and shows tiers based on the risk of community transmission, from widespread, substantial, moderate, and minimal. And San Diego is currently in the substantial tier, which is also known as Tier 2, or the red tier. Going to the next slide, when we look at the state of California as a whole, and as of October 6th, there were only 3 counties in Southern California, in addition to San Diego County, that are in the red tier, or Tier 2. Initially, going to the next slide, with the new state monitoring system, the case rate and testing positivity were the core metrics. In addition, the state testing rate is equally important, as it is used to calculate the adjusted case rate. 2 weeks ago, on September 29th, the testing rate was changed from an average to the median testing rate. So that was actually 4 weeks ago. The new state median testing rate is now calculated by staff at 239, which will be in place for the next 4 weeks. If the county testing rate is above the overall state median testing rate, this lowers the county case rate. However, if the county testing rate is below the state median testing rate, the unadjusted rate is adjusted to a higher case rate. To note, today, October 13th, county staff calculated the adjusted case rate for the 7-day period from September 7th to October 3rd to be 6.8, which places us in the red tier. And the testing positivity is at 3.2%, which is maintained in the orange tier. Based on county calculations of these data, San Diego County continues to be in Tier 2, or the red tier. The state is expected to publicly post state metrics for the various counties by noon today. Now, in addition to the county case rate and the testing positivity, health equity is the third new metric that has been developed by the state. The new health equity metric incentivizes counties to reduce infections across every neighborhood, especially the counties in the lower quartile. The health equity metric in the next slide is based on the Healthy Places Index. Healthy Places Index was developed by the Public Health Alliance of Southern California to assist in exploring local factors that predict life expectancy and comparing community conditions across the state. The HPI, again, the Healthy Places Index, provides overall scores and more detailed data on specific policy actions areas that shape health. These include 8 community conditions as they're listed on this slide. These are also commonly referred to as social determinants of health. Now, in the next slide, based on the Healthy Places Index determination, a score is developed. A region is categorized into 4 groups or quartiles. The highest to the lowest quartile are the healthiest communities to the least healthy communities. As seen on this map using the HPI score, San Diego County is categorized into 4 groups. The top group, the healthiest quartile, or the areas with the healthiest communities, is shown in dark green. The next highest group is the 50 to 75% quartile, which is shown in light green. The group in the 25th to 50th quartile is shown in light blue, and the group in the bottom 25th, the lowest quartile, and the least healthiest communities are shown in dark blue. Communities on the map shown in the white dashed areas are military bases and are not applicable or included in the HPI model. The dark blue regions to the right are tribal nations. Also on this map, the black dots represent all of the county's testing sites as of October 9th, and they are well matched to the lowest quartile areas. Members of the public can visit the Healthy Places Index to access information further regarding counties and this new metric. Going to the next slide, based on statewide data, we know that COVID-19 is disproportionately impacting certain communities, and in particular, our lower income and communities of colors. Some of these communities are reflected in the areas identified in the lowest quartile, are those with the least healthy communities. So if we go to the next slide, what we want to share are the areas that will be, or activities and strategies that will be included in a report that we will submit to the state on Thursday. Addressing the COVID-19 related health equities involves the combination of approaches that involve immediate strategies, long-term strategies, and cross-cutting strategies. As seen on this slide and the following 2 slides, San Diego has been doing the work needed to resolve barriers and has focused on the interventions where there is disproportionate impact of COVID-19, helping to accelerate progress towards recovery in these areas. So in this first slide, we will go through the 4 components of testing, contact tracing, isolation and treatment, and worker protection. And I am happy to say that of all of the strategies that have been laid out in the state's framework, San Diego has implemented activities in all but one of the strategies for this category. In testing, we prioritize testing of ethnic and vulnerable populations included in the testing priority framework. We focused testing in South County as well as the border and directed County Fire Authority to conduct testing in rural areas. And we've also we are conducting outreach to and testing for Latino farm workers. Regarding contact tracing, you'll hear more about that from Nick, but we've hired contact tracing staff to reflect the diversity of the clients that are being served. We are utilizing promotors for contact tracing and established 4 tracing contracts with community-based organizations whom you will hear from shortly. We've also executed a contract for early detection wastewater programs to help identify communities that might be impacted. In isolation and treatment, we've developed a capacity for over 1,000 public health rooms with available wraparound services, such as providing transportation, food, and health care. And lastly, regarding worker protections, we've distributed needed PPE or personal protective equipment and encourage employers to adopt sick leave policies. The next category is longer-term strategies, and these include the 5 component areas on the slide. A couple of these longer-term activities include implementation of the Child Care Provider Assistance Program, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the Positive Recovery Stipend Program, and opening of the Convention Center to provide shelter and other needed services for those experiencing homelessness. And the last major category is cross-cutting strategies, and these include the 5 areas here: data, communication, language access, and cultural competency, community engagement, and mental health care. Highlights in this strategy include ensuring that case investigators and tracers speak Spanish and other languages to meet the needs of cases. We have been providing critical COVID-19 related data by various demographics, including race, ethnicity, zip code, and municipalities. And we've convened more than 370 telebriefings via over 20 various community sectors. And we've contracted with trusted partners to conduct outreach to and education of key populations. In the next slide, amid COVID-19 pandemic, more than ever before, it is important that individuals get the flu vaccine, and everyone is recommended 6 months of age and older to be vaccinated. If you are not able to get a flu shot at your healthcare provider location, the county offers 6 vaccination sites starting on October 22nd through November 3rd. And we all play a role in reducing transmission rates of flu in our community, and by getting the flu shot, this helps to keep people out of the hospital so that we can manage any increased COVID-19 cases that need to be admitted. And in closing, the prevention strategies, washing your hands, and sanitation practices, keeping 6 feet apart, wearing a face covering, avoiding crowds and large gatherings or parties, and staying home if you are sick are critically important in determining the future trajectory of COVID-19 pandemic until a vaccine is available to achieve herd immunity. These strategies directly impact testing positivity rate and case rate. Lowering these metrics help to keep San Diego County in the red tier, and in the future hopefully progress to the less restrictive tiers 3 and 4. By doing your part to decrease testing positivity and the number of cases in San Diego County, we can progress to less restrictive tiers. And I want to remind all San Diego County residents to please continue to do their part. By going to less restrictive tiers, this will help the county chances of opening other sectors. Now, please welcome Nick Meshion.
Thank you, Dr. Wooten. From the beginning, the social drivers for health has been foundational to our county response to COVID-19. This is especially true for our T3 strategy of test, trace, and treat. For testing, it's been about accessible COVID-19 testing throughout the entire county region, and especially for those communities disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. For trace, we focused our efforts on culturally responsive disease investigation and contact tracing. And for treat, we ensured that we're able to provide assistance for safe isolation and services that are individualized to the various socioeconomic needs of the San Diegans in need of our help. Now, as you know, a main focus for T3 has been to increase our testing capacity. First and foremost, to protect the public's health and to test the right folks for the right reasons. And we're doing this also while supporting the movement through the economic reopening, equally important. We've made great strides over the past few months, only briefly slowed down by the nationwide shortage of testing supplies experienced during the summer season. Most recently, we have tripled down our efforts pushing for more testing as schools begin to resume in-person learning. And as we know, as you increase more testing, it's vital to ensure a very robust, culturally responsive disease investigation program, as I say, so that we can use speed and accuracy in hunting down the virus. I'm pleased to be joined by Jeff Johnson, our Chief of Epidemiology and Immunization Services Branch, and our lead for the T3 program for TRACE. Jeff will provide an overview of our county's investigations, case investigations, contact tracing, and will also be joining some of our great vital partners to this work to share how our partnership has taken our disease investigation program really to the highest level in this state. With that, Jeff.
Thank you, Nick, and good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. Disease investigation for infectious diseases such as COVID-19 involve two key activities. The state of California has mandated that all COVID-19 lab test results for all persons be reported to public health, and our local public health officer, Dr. Wooten, has amplified this as well. It is important to note that while our public health lab was one of the first labs in the state to perform testing for this virus, we now have multitudes of different labs throughout California and the nation doing testing and reporting to us. Thankfully, most of the lab reporting is through electronic interfaces made possible through previous investments and support by this board. This morning, I would like to provide a quick overview of each of the disease investigation operational areas as they relate to the current emergency response for COVID-19. With the next slide here, this slide outlines the first key activity of disease investigation, which we know as case investigation. As shared in the previous slide, our department receives all the COVID-19 lab test results for those tests administered in San Diego County. Doctors and medical offices, healthcare providers, organizations, and our department use this lab information to inform individuals about their diagnosis and to instruct them to safely stay away from others. As lab results are reported to us at Public Health Services, our epidemiology team processes these into our secure, confidential communicable disease registry system. These results are then reviewed and assigned out to case investigators in a timely manner so that they can reach out to the individual. This is how our case investigation process starts. On this next slide, you'll see some of the components, and so it includes the following confidential processes: verifying the lab result and reviewing the patient's medical information from the medical chart, reaching out to the individual to discuss details of their illness, discussing the importance of isolation, which is necessary to separate sick people with COVID illness from those who are not sick. And we also ask them if they have resources to safely isolate themselves. If not, the case investigator may make a referral for temporary lodging in a public health room, as well as other services that are part of the T3 Treat initiative. We know that over 1,800 individuals have been safely sheltered in the county's public health hotel rooms. Nearly half of these have been among persons from the lowest quartile of the Healthy People Index, Healthy Places Index Dr. Wooten referenced earlier. Another resource example is some cases have been referred to the county's new COVID-19 Positive Recovery Stipend Program. And this program was established to assist eligible individuals to receive some financial resources they receive while they're in isolation. Since September 25th, we know of at least 507 individuals that have been eligible for this program. The case investigator also asked the individuals to identify anyone who they've been in close contact with in a specified time period. The case investigation process has a critical role in helping us slow the spread of disease within our region. Next slide. So, since January, our Epidemiology and Immunization Services branch began responding to this worldwide pandemic well before we had any cases in our county. Since that time, we have maintained a 24/7 operations to identify and investigate COVID-19 cases. I just want to give a quick shout out to our amazing team of highly dedicated and professional staff. You're an amazing team. As of October 11th, we have conducted 57,354 total case investigations, from which we have identified 50,746 confirmed cases among residents of San Diego County. Not all the potential cases reported to us for investigation end up being included in our confirmed case count due to two main reasons. We find out that many of the cases were actually residents of other counties, states, or countries, and more recently, per guidance from the state, we have been investigating and taking public health action on reported antigen positive cases which are considered probable cases. We continue to make good progress in meeting our goal of timely investigations. When we look at our 7-day average metric, we continue to achieve over 90% of case investigations being initiated within 24 hours of us receiving the lab result. I'm happy to report that in most of our case investigations begin and are completed in a timely manner. With this next slide, we can show the general timeline from the onset of illness through completion of the case investigation. It includes several key areas of case engagement and information flow. Having the specimen collected, then having the lab test the specimen, the lab reporting the results to public health, and then our investigation begins. We have highlighted the average time for the cases reported to us during the week of September 27th through October 3rd as an example. Cases who did not report symptoms are not included in this analysis. The first stage of this timeline reflects action taken by the individual. The average number of days between their onset of illness to getting tested was 3.5 days on average. The second stage reflects action taken by the medical provider and lab. The average number of days between getting tested and the lab result being available was 2.8 days on average. Note, this isn't an average of all labs, but as we know, our public health lab and our hospital labs are doing much better than this overall average with their lab turnaround test times. The last two stages consist of action taken by the public health and our disease investigators. The average number of days between getting the lab result and starting the investigation is 0.4 days or less than 1 day. And the final stage is which the time between starting and completing the investigation on average is 0.4 days or less than 1 day. Overall, for the cases reported during that week between the onset of illness and the completion of the investigation was 7.1 days. Collectively, working with our public, our community partners, the medical and lab community, and our county response team, we have seen each stage of this timeline achieve shorter and shorter times in the recent few months. We've made more testing sites available to more people within different communities, and many with no appointments needed. We've seen improvements in the lab turnaround test time for most labs, and we've seen improvements in our public health response in contacting the cases. One final key point I want to make here about this slide is that anybody who starts developing symptoms for COVID should get tested as soon as possible. Switching gears, we're going to talk about our disease control efforts that include contact tracing. Contact tracing is the process of identifying, contacting, and engaging with people who have been exposed to a confirmed case of COVID-19. As part of this process, our contact tracing staff requests close contacts to quarantine, monitor for symptoms. We refer them to healthcare provider if necessary, encourage testing, and to stay in touch with them during their 14-day monitoring period. The contact tracing staff also connects them to testing and refers close contacts to resources as needed. This is critical to keeping COVID-19 from spreading throughout the community and is part of our T3 strategy of test, trace, and treat. When exposed individuals enter quarantine, they interrupt the chain of transmission, which is key to controlling this pandemic. With the next slide here, as of October 10th, we have conducted 43,574 contact tracing interviews. As you may know from the T3 dashboard, which is posted online each day, we continue to perform very well in reaching our contacts in a very timely manner. Our 7-day average metric in the timeliness of contact interviews being initiated within 24 hours remains over 90%. And the good news is that nearly 50% of those contact interviews took place the very same day that the case investigation identified the close contacts. And so the contact tracing component of our disease investigation operations really helps illustrate the nexus of test, trace, and treat. And while the primary aim during the contact tracing interview is to provide the close contact with key information regarding their exposure to an individual who tested positive, it is also an opportunity for the contact tracer to identify the unique needs of the close contact and ensure that they have what they need to safely quarantine. In some situations, this could warrant testing for the contact. It could also mean referring them to many of our free testing locations. And it could also mean that if they don't have a safe to placely quarantine, that we can refer them to the treat team to utilize one of the public health hotel rooms. It may also mean referring them to close contacts to resources to support basic needs. And this leads me to talk about our vital COVID-19 response partners who are really an extension of our disease investigation efforts. With this next slide here, we have, since the response began, a priority of our team has been to ensure culturally competent disease investigation activities. And the focus is related in the diversity of our staff, culturally sensitive trainings which we have provided, and alignment of our outreach by language, race, and ethnicity. And we are working closely with our community stakeholders to establish best practices. And it is so important to acknowledge that in order for us to do this right and to do this effectively, we cannot do this work alone. This morning, we are fortunate to be joined by several representatives from 4 of our community partners that we have engaged with and have been helping us perform our local disease investigation activities. We are joined this morning by Dr. Hala Marinat from San Diego State University, Alina Shaw with Project Concern International. Both of these 2 individuals will be joining us virtually. And then Mauricio Torre from South Bay Community Services, and Dr. Cheryl Anderson with the University of California, San Diego. And each of these partners has had a specific focus and has helped us extend our outreach within the community. As of October 10, there have been over 3,800 referrals made to these partners for contact tracing activities. I will now turn it over to each one of them briefly to share a little bit about the support they've been providing. And so Dr. Marinat, we'll start with you, followed by Alina, Mauricio, and then Dr. Anderson.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me here and providing me with the opportunity to speak to you about our contact tracing program known as Communities Fighting COVID. We've been recruiting, hiring, and training a workforce of community health workers to provide both culturally appropriate and linguistically concordant contact tracing services to San Diego communities. Our focus has been on our Latino, African American, Arabic speaking, and Tagalog speaking communities. I'd like to point out that HHA's and specifically NIC's vision to have community health workers be part of the contact tracing effort is of great importance. Community health workers are part of their communities and have both the knowledge and trust and also the vested interest in making their communities safer. The communities we've selected were driven by data, including data on numbers of cases and language utilization. We recruited community health workers from across these communities and provided them with in-depth training. The purpose was to provide contact tracing services, including home visits, to provide quarantine advice, linkages to care, social support, financial support, and other referrals as needed. As we started our collaboration with the county, in addition to traditional contact tracing and providing referral services, we've also been able to focus our efforts on those whom we refer to as unable to contact. These are individuals who county contact tracers attempted to reach at least 3 times but were unable to reach. Once referred to us, we do a home visits. Of those referred to us who are either Arabic or Tagalog speaking, we have been able to reach 100% of these individuals. For African Americans, we have been able to reach 89%, and for Latino community, we've reached 76%. These numbers underscore the importance of the community health worker model and the workers themselves in their ability to reach their community. Since the beginning of our work with the county, our community health workers have contact traced 750 individuals, provided 167 referrals, and they've also done 220 home visits, since the beginning, which has reached approximately 1,000 individuals. For referral services, most referral requests, including financial resources, rental assistance, and food services. I will turn it back to you, Jeff. I appreciate this time.
With that, we'll turn over to Elena Shaw with Project Concern International.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor for San Diego-based Project Concern International to be collaborating with the county to address the COVID pandemic, and I'm excited to briefly share with you some of the contact tracing work we've been doing over the past several months. In order to reflect the demographics both of San Diego County's population and those affected by COVID, PCI has built a diverse staff of highly trained 15 part-time, multilingual, and multicultural contact tracers. Within this team, we have the capacity to speak to people who are close contacts to someone with laboratory-confirmed COVID in 9 different languages, which have been identified as priority by the county. These include Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Arabic, Chaldean, Ilocano, and of course, English as well. Our tracers come from a variety of backgrounds and include a science teacher, several community health workers and educators, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, and many students and practitioners of public health. Several of our Spanish-speaking staff are binational and familiar with the unique factors impacting the binational community's ability to prevent COVID. Along with the diversity and targeted skill set of our staff, our staffing model allows us to conduct contact tracing 7 days a week from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m., and we were able to conduct field visits as needed. Over the past month, we've been receiving 70 new contacts to trace each week and are slowly ramping up to be able to accept 150 new contacts each week to trace. PCI is using a range of technology, including a unique tracking system of the status of contacts under monitoring and a web-based phone platform that allows us to be very persistent, thorough, and efficient in reaching all contacts and ensuring that they are placed under quarantine as quickly as possible to prevent further spread of COVID. One example of this persistence was a high-risk contact who we learned would become homeless during the quarantine period, and who was also screening incoming calls because they were very wary of scams and unknown numbers. Our contact tracers built their trust and continued calling back almost every day to check in on them and make sure that they saved our general line so that he would recognize our team and answer. We were able to provide him with housing assistance resources as offered by the county to ensure that he had a safe place to stay while completing his monitoring visit, and period. Every day, our contact tracers have stories of how their efforts are impacting contacts' lives, since this pandemic really is touching the economic and social threads of our community. All of our contact tracers and contact tracing team members are local to San Diego, and we're invigorated by serving our families, friends, neighbors, and community with contact tracing efforts to stop the spread of COVID. Thank you.
Good morning.
I have some stats that I was going to go over, but it sounds like the contact tracing, that's pretty clear for everybody. But what I did want to do is just make sure I'm with South Bay Community Services, and we are honored to be a partner on such an important life-saving effort. We know what the stats are out there for Latino communities and the death rates for Latino communities. And the big question is, how is it that we're engaging with these individuals and these families? And really an important part is just making sure that the promotoras and these contact tracers reflect the community and speak the language. In many ways, many of the families, many of the individuals are in a time of stress. Many of them have been isolated. Many of them have been worried about the next paycheck coming in or rent being paid. And we know that in times of stress, people don't make logical decisions many times. So in that fear, this model that really focuses on having a trusted person, a promotora, somebody that lives in the community, somebody that's culturally competent and lives and speaks the language, contact them makes a huge impact. For example, we recently received a call from a young girl at San Diego State University. I'm sorry, we made a call, and we're doing some contact tracing. The first few calls, that individual wouldn't pick up the phone or would pick up the phone and then would hang up. And it took some persistence for us to continue calling, and eventually that young woman opened up to us. And she was an Uber driver, and she'd attended a party at one of her friend's house, and she thought she was doing socially distancing, but she wasn't. And the important piece is she was ready to jump into an Uber, into her Uber car and drive people around. And a big part of this is she was fearful, she was scared, she broke down, started to cry. And a big part of what we did is we provided that education and let her know that there are organizations out there, including the County of San Diego, that are here willing to help support and guide everybody from youth to a senior citizen that we just contacted that's 84 years old. So this individual, for example, we're able to give her the information, we're able to help her with rental assistance, link her to needed resources, food, housing, again, and information. And as a result, she stayed home. We continually contacted her on a daily basis because her families are out of state. And we were contacting her, just providing that reassurance. So in many ways, especially with hard-hit communities, that safe face, that caring voice makes such a huge impact. And knowing that there are so many resources out there for families, that's a key component because many individuals don't know that there are resources out there for them. We are gearing up right now. We've hired on 10 promotoras so far. We have 4 more that we're hiring. And we're ready to take the calls. We're ready to provide these needed services. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. It's my pleasure to be here today to highlight the partnership that our new Herbert Wertheim School of Public Health has forged with the San Diego County Health Department. Since January, we have been watching in awe and been so impressed with what Dr. Wooten has been doing in her leadership here in the county around COVID-19 response, Director Nick Machione, as well as the epidemiology branch in all of the staff that are involved. So thank you all so much for really bringing our new school into this partnership and being engaged with us in the COVID-19 response. So we've had actually a number of different ways that we've been disease investigation partners. I'll focus on our contact tracing bits in a minute, but I want to say that when we came up with crazy things like wanting to test wastewater and wanting to think about exposure notification, and we called over, to the San Diego County Health Department, they always met us with, first of all, a quick response and okay, let's talk that through. Let's see what we can possibly do. And that's real partnership, is really engaging with us in some of the things that may seem a little different and new. With regards to some of the fundamental pillars of public health, you've already heard from Dr. Wooten's talk and Director Machione's talk that contact tracing is key to interrupting transmission. And so we have been so pleased to be able to engage in the age group of 18 to 24 years old. And at University of California, San Diego, like you've heard with the other partners, we've hired a team of contact tracers, highly diverse, really committed to meeting the special needs of the 18 to 24-year-old group, because as you saw in Dr. Wooten's report, roughly 60% of the cases are falling in sort of that 18 to 40 age group, and the 18 to 24-year-olds, as they are typically likely to do, are potentially at high risk for transmission to others because they tend to congregate. And so we at UC San Diego, in addition to doing the traditional protocols, which we have worked out with our county partners, thank you, Jeff Johnson, you and your team have just been fantastic with working with us on that. We have also thought through what it means to be at high risk for transmission. And we are utilizing that in this age group because in order to interrupt transmission quickly, we have to know not only what it looks like in terms of their chances of getting symptoms and having severe disease, but also passing that on to others. We've also engaged really closely with the health department around outbreak prevention. So in the 18 to 24-year-old group, many may be in college environments or in other environments where they're living closely with others, and being able to find cases early, being able to elicit their contacts early, and then removing them from general community circulation so that we can interrupt transmission is really, really key. And so, again, working with the county on protocols in that space has been really helpful and a productive experience. So with that, I just want to say, you know, we as a new school are grateful to have been embraced by the county. We look forward to a long-term, well-sustained partnership as we think about how to get beyond COVID-19 and continue to work with you as other things come up in the county. We're looking forward to that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you, Mauricio, Alina, and Dr. Madanot. And thank you to all of our community partners. We are blessed beyond blessed, having amazing partners doing amazing work, and we could not do it without you. I'd also want to acknowledge the fact that with leadership of Jeff Johnson, Dr. Wooten, Dr. McDonald, and many in this chamber from the county team and those that are back in the office working in our county team, it's doing amazing work. You know, in closing, I'd like to share that this final slide summarizes our approach under the T3 strategy. And it's in alignment with the state and local policies, and we really operated on this broad overarching umbrella of being data-driven, health equity focused, but with driving results, measurable results, evident by what was shared, Dr. Wooten earlier, helping us in our economic reopening and what T3 has been able to contribute. For tests, we continue to work with our community to identify and expand, even as we speak, additional testing locations for all of our residents and schools that are reopening so they have accessible COVID-19 testing. And for Trace, as has been mentioned, we're partnering with all of our great, diverse community partners that is grounded on focusing on the social drivers for health, which we know is the path forward in having people live well. And for Treat, we continue to offer all the resources that your board has been exceptionally helpful to our efforts, has been shared by Mauricio and the assistants and Alina of what we've been able to do at all our speakers to be able to make sure we're helping people safely recover from the virus. We've been aggressively proactive in identifying opportunities and making connections to help residents help reduce the inequities and disparities in this pandemic that's been brought to the forefront. And with that, now I'd like to turn it over to Andy Pease to discuss an update on our CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund spending update. Andy?
All right, thank you, Nick. Good morning. The County of San Diego has been allocated almost $388 million of CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund revenue to address the COVID pandemic. Your board established a framework for use of these funds for an array of programs and response efforts, as noted in this slide. Now, unless there is legislative change, these CARES Act funds are available through December 30th, 2020, and any unspent dollars are to be returned to the U.S. Treasury. The various stimulus packages that have been and are being considered at the federal level include an extension of these funds, but as of today, there is no guarantee that such a bill will pass. And with no certainty of an extension, today's update reflects the latest spending estimates for these programs so that your board can consider if any additional action is needed to ensure we maximize the full use of the CARES Act dollars. Overall, you'll see we are estimating we could potentially underspend the CARES Act funds by $23.8 million. Let me break down the estimated underspending into some bite-sized components, starting with the Great Plates programs. On August 4th, your board allocated $11.8 million in the use of the CARES Act funds for the Great Plates Delivered and Great Plates Delivered 2.0 programs. Based on current trends, we could have a total savings of $8.6 million between these two programs. And there are two primary reasons. One is the demand and growth in the programs has been lower than initially estimated. Currently, between the two programs, we have grown to around a little over 4,000 participants and growing, but our earlier estimates assumed we'd be at 5,000 by this time. Another, and maybe the more significant reason for our savings, is that FEMA continues to renew the Great Plates Delivered program. Just last week, they renewed it for another month through November 8th. When they renew, that means we can cover almost 94% of the costs for the Great Plates program through FEMA. We spend well over $1 million and provide over 69,000 meals a week under the primary Great Plates Delivered program. As long as FEMA maintains this program, our county cost is well under $100,000 a week. So built into our saving assumptions for this is that FEMA will continue to fund the program through the end of December. Should they end it sooner, then our savings that you see up here will not materialize. Now, on August 4th, when your board allocated the funds to Great Plates programs, you directed staff to use any remaining savings from the Great Plates program and apply it to the food banks. Currently, we have agreements with the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank and Feeding San Diego. So barring a different direction issued by your board, we would work with these food banks to reallocate any Great Plates savings. We have reached out to both organizations, and between the two of them, not necessarily equitably, they have indicated that they can spend the remaining Great Plates savings, should there be any. Another area we are projected underspending is in behavioral health services telehealth capabilities. On May 19th, your board allocated $15 million to enhance behavioral health services telehealth capabilities, upgrade electronic health record care coordination, provide outreach and engagement, workforce recruitment and retention in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and stay-at-home order. The Department of Behavioral Health is investing in all these areas, but we are estimating we could underspend by around $5 million. Now, program has indicated that many of the clients receiving behavioral health services are struggling with financial stress, and the department has asked if rental assistance can be an allowable use of the $15 million, similar to the rental assistance program your board approved on August 25th. And behavioral health has been in discussions with Housing and Community Development Services and believe they could implement such a program using their existing rental assistance program structure. So, taking a pause and looking back at the slide, if you take the $23.8 million estimated to be underspent, subtract out $8.6 million savings for the two Great Plates programs, that leaves $15.2 million of CARES Act funding. And if you agree in the use of the $5 million of behavioral health savings for rental assistance, then that leaves $10.2 million of CARES Act funding potentially available, which includes a little over $1 million in earned interest. Within the $10.2 million, you have savings within child welfare services outreach. Now that's due to having fewer families that have referred to the program than anticipated. Also, we show savings in T3 and county response. Now I'm just going to say this, as it pertains to T3, I'll admit this is an area that is particularly challenging to estimate costs. Using Nick's own words that he just provided, they are being aggressively proactive. Try to forecast costs for something that's aggressively proactive. But they continue to ramp up efforts. They're investing in vaccine supplies. They're developing new strategies to address the trajectory of the virus, the needs of the community, addressing the various trends, including taking into consideration now the latest health equity metrics. But with that said, with what we can see today, and based on all these assumptions, we are estimating we could underspend collectively by about $23.8 million. Let me remind the board that during budget deliberations on August 25th, when your board established the $24 million emergency rental assistance program, you utilized a combination of funds, including $7.4 million of CARES Act dollars, which you see up there that we will spend, and you also used $16.6 million of local general fund balance. As part of your action on that day, you directed that any unused portion of existing CARES Act allocations be prioritized for replacement of the $16.6 million of the fund balance. Unless your board directs us differently, we will do just that and use any CARES Act funds we underspend to cover the existing rental assistance program at the current funding level and replace the use of the general fund balance. That action affords us a certain amount of flexibility. It gives us room to maneuver in managing savings and utilizing the full amount of the CARES Act by December 30th. That concludes my update. In the use of the CARES Act funds, we will keep you apprised if there's any significant changes in the trends, as well as any legislative actions that may materially impact the use of these funds. And I'll turn it back over to Don.
Thanks, Andy. In addition to receiving this update, we recommend your board take the following actions with respect to this item. Ratify all actions previously taken in response to this local health emergency and local emergency, and take any other action necessary to address the COVID-19 pandemic emergency response. Subject to your questions, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Don. A couple of quick questions. The funding that we provided through the CARES Act to the 17 cities in San Diego County, not counting the city of San Diego, I think the stipulation was that those funds had to be spent by, I believe, September 30th. Do we have any accounting for those funds, and are any of those going to be coming back?
At this point, we're not aware of any of the dollars coming back. All cities have submitted their reports and their supporting documents to justify the use of the $25 million, and that is being looked at and reconciled as we speak. So we should know soon whether it's fully covered.
Okay, so at this point, the presumption is they're probably going to spend all the $25 million that was set aside for them for the legitimate purposes covered under the CARES Act.
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, and then one other quick question is I was looking at the list of on page 34 of the staff report. When I added up the potential underspending, I came up with 23.9. So maybe you could check that out and let us know a little bit later.
It's probably, it's a rounding issue, but yeah, 23.8
okay.
is what I have.
Okay. I know we have 4 speakers on this item, but let me ask if there's other comments by board members, and I see that Supervisor Jacob wishes to comment at this time.
Mr. Chairman, not a comment. I had a question on the Great Plates program. I don't know if Kim Gallo is online or not, but Kim has been the point person in administering the program. And I'd kind of like to hear from her, because as I understand, there's increasing numbers that are participating in the program. And I would not want to pull the plug too soon on transferring money out of that program into another program. So Kim, if you're on the line, could you give us an update on Great Plates, other than the numbers that Andy just shared, just the program itself, and if we should keep a certain amount of money in that program and maybe wait to transfer it? If you could comment on that and share that with the board.
Yes, Supervisor. We have about 3,335 seniors enrolled in the original Great Plates, and we have 715 adults enrolled in Great Plates 2.0. with applications coming in daily. So it's kind of hard to gauge exactly what we will spend on this because we didn't have a cutoff for enrolling. We're accepting new enrollments as they come in. And obviously, if they qualify for Great Plates 1, we are trying to direct them to that program because most of the funding is from elsewhere. And so with both programs, we anticipate that if we continue them through the end of December 30th, and if FEMA does continue to pay, that there will be substantial savings in Great Plates 1. However, one of the challenges that we have with this is that each month it's renewed. So on the 8th of the month, they tell us if they're going to renew it for another month. And we usually hear the same day of the expiration. So we have told the 49 participating restaurants that we would allow at least a week's notice if FEMA decides not to renew it each month on the 8th. And at full cost, that would cost us about $1.6 million for a 1-week period. So I do think we need to retain some of those funding so that if we have, and if we don't get the extension each month, that we would have a 7-day period to glide slope off of the program. And then with Great Plates 2.0, I estimate that we'll probably have about $2.8 million in savings if we had around 800 people continue through the end of December.
So Kim, as I understand, you're suggesting, because I know there's going to be some eagerness to transfer the money out of Great Plates someplace to go someplace else. So if I understand what you're saying, you're already using 3.8 million, that's in the program. But in addition to that, to not spend, to keep in the program another, what, 1.6?
Yes, I think that that would cover us if we did not get the FEMA funding through the end of the year. I think one of the good parts with our food banks is that we have been able to allocate funding to them and get it spent fairly quickly. So we will know for certain. Obviously, we'll know on November 8th if we have another 30-day extension. And then on December 8th, if we didn't get one, we would still probably be able to then allocate additional funding to the food bank per your initial board request on August 7th.
So if we kept 1.6 million in the Great Plates program with a direction to, if it's not used by what, the end of November, December 8th, then transfer that to the food banks, that would work, that would be successful?
If that is the direction that you and the board wish us to pursue, I think that would work.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your work on this too. We got a lot of people out there, seniors getting fed, meals delivered, and helping restaurants at the same time. So I appreciate that. That's all I had at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, are there any other questions before we get into the public communication speakers?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Fletcher.
If I may quick. I've got a question for Nick Machione on T3. The board letter says to take $7.5 million unspent from T3 and redirect it to other things. I don't see that we have $7.5 million unspent for T3. Can you confirm the projected amount is 3.8? And then can you comment on your ability to spend those funds between now and the end of the year?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor. Indeed, it is 3.8 as we stand today. It does not incorporate all the enhanced testing we are doing for our schools. We anticipate to expend all funds in the T3 budget as it relates to testing by this calendar year.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I think it'd be a devastatingly bad idea to take money out of testing. We are dependent upon that for our disease response, for monitoring what's happening. The increase in testing also, because of the adjustment factor, is what's kept us in the red category and tier. And so to take money from testing when we've just heard it's necessary, I believe would be a mistake. I do support the effort on the behavioral health funds to expand those for rental assistance for behavioral health clients. I think that's appropriate. I think that's consistent with the aim and effort of what we initially adopted. The other comment I would make would be surrounding the child welfare funds. This is a very modest amount in the totality of what we've done, but this is an important and critical key mission for the County of San Diego. And so for the 1.6 million left, I would suggest that if there are those left, that they would go to support resource families and group home providers through a stipend program. We know that our families that are out there doing the difficult work have been impacted and hit hard I know our child welfare department sees some value in doing that. And so those would be my suggestions. I think, Mr. Chair, you're going to make an overarching motion, but my suggestions would be the behavioral health funds. I think that's right to go to the rental assistance program for there. I would not take any money from T3 for testing. I think, as Nick just said, they have plans to spend that, and we need those funds. And then for child welfare, I would keep those funds there, giving them the flexibility to support resource families and group homes through a stipend program with $1.6 million. And then I know after public comment, folks will have some other thoughts on what to do with the remaining, but those are the highest priority ones I see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. And I don't disagree with your priorities, but we'll get to those a little bit later. If there's no further questions to staff, let's go ahead and have the four.
Chairman Cox, this is Andy Pease. If I can just make a clarifying point.
Sure, go ahead, Andy.
To the board letter that Supervisor Fletcher referenced about the $7.5 million unspent, it references T3, but I believe when that board letter went forward, they were including the county response component. When you combine the county response and the T3 on that one slide, it's 7.6, but rounded down to 7.5.
Yeah, I think the reference was to Supervisor Desmond's board letter item 13, but Supervisor Desmond, did you have some comments?
Well, yeah, and I'd be happy to comment on item 13 when we get there. But
Okay.
on Nick's, I just had a question, and I think everybody, it was a great presentation. It was really good to hear from everybody behind the scenes, who are all working towards this effort at testing and tracing, and I'm very happy to hear that. But I have a question. We got a new number now from the state. I think it was 239 or 235 for the testing median. And then we hear that, we're doing up to 10,000 tests a day. I'm wondering if you have figured out, okay, if we got to get to this 235 number, how many testing per day? What's the average that we're shooting for testing per day to get us to that 235 number that the state is using as a median?
Supervisor, the number we're looking at is not necessarily some benchmark by the state. What we're guided by is the 600,000 school-age children, the 80,000 school personnel, and more recent, in the last month or so, our focus was to really prepare for that school reopening. And so we know today, you're correct, we're at 10,400, our 7-day average. That number, in fact, will increase as more of the schools. Just recently, working with the San Diego Unified School District, one of the largest ones in our county, they're starting today, in fact. And those numbers are going to rise in the weeks as they begin to reopen. So we've been really driven by what our community needs are for schools, what it needs with our partners, ensuring we have obviously the appropriate testing levels in the most adversely impacted communities. And as we said earlier, it's not just making accessible testing. We want to make sure we are doing that to root out the virus. And so we know that by doing that robust testing, that'll be our best defense. So I can't tell you exactly. I know it'll be north of 10,400 where we are today. To where it will land, it will be depending upon the demand that we see from our schools. So that is really the guidance we have right now. And we are fortunate we are above then the state median, which does help us with the economic reopening.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor, let me just add, Hannah's in the chamber here, and I'm sure I see her up there fast and furiously calculating that, and she does calculate that. And so we can give you that. We'll have that for item 13 to be able to answer that. I'll have Hannah come down and answer the specific question that you asked to the best of her ability. But you also have to remember we want to put in a factor up above that, because we never know whether all the lab test results will get in and be calculated in that. So we do have a factor that we put on top of that. So Hannah, would it be okay for you to come down when we hear item 13 to answer that question? Oh, she has it now. Come on down, Hannah. That's I love about Hannah. She always has it now.
Hi, so just to refresh, what we used for the state median testing rate was 239.0. That was based on our calculations. The state has not come out with the official state median yet, but using the median of 238 per 100,000, we'd have to be at 8,055 tests per day on average to match that.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was asking for. I just want to be able to know when we look at the daily testing numbers if we're below or above that benchmark. And I know, Nick, you guys have been doing a great job with testing, and you will meet and achieve and do all the proper testing that we need to do regardless, but I just kind of was looking for that benchmark. So thank you very much. Appreciate the answer.
Okay, any other questions to staff before we get into the 4 public speakers? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and call those speakers at this time, and they'll each have up to 3 minutes to go ahead and make their comments.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Also note for the record that we received 4 e-comments on this item. As you indicated, we have 3 callers on the line to address the board. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Thank you. We'll begin with the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 8067.
Who's this first speaker?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, you may proceed.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to thank Chairman Cox for this opportunity. I'm James Flores. I'm the CEO and president of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank and our North County Food Bank chapter. I thought it would be helpful to give the Board of Supervisors an overview of the front lines of what we're seeing as far as people who are now food insecure. We think that number doubled prior to COVID. About 450,000 people were food insecure. Now we estimate that number could be as much as large as 1 million people. By way of background, San Diego Food Bank, local organization. Not only were we the leading and largest hunger organization in the region, we're considered by state officials to be probably the top 2 food banks in the state and probably the top independent food bank in the nation. We went from feeding our usual 350,000 people a month prior to COVID to nearly 600,000 people. Really crazy numbers. Just since the middle of March, we have distributed over 32 million pounds of food. To try to get your arms around how much 32 million pounds of food is, that is 1,100 semi-truck loads full of food. I was checking our stats just this morning, and I looked at how much we had distributed in each supervisor district. Just in the last 6 months, we have distributed basically the equivalent of what we distributed all of last year. So again, over 32 million pounds of food. Prior to COVID, we have a very strong distribution model. We have 200 distribution sites throughout the county that we control. Plus, we have a network of more than 500 nonprofit agencies with feeding programs. But to up our game and to really improve our infrastructure and our distribution model, phase 3 of our COVID response is we launched in July 1 our Super Pantry program, where we took 35 of our 500 nonprofit partners. We turned them into Super Pantries. Those are high volume, high frequency distribution sites. They're strategically located throughout the county. And we think that we can feed about 100 to 120,000 people per month just at those 35 sites. Still, our 465 other nonprofit partners are fully functioning and providing food. And then also, we tripled the size of our mobile pantry program so we can hit gaps in service in the backcountry. The way that we've used existing funding already received from the county and the CARES Act is that we have projected or proposed a public-private partnership. We are paying for all the ugly money, storage, personnel, transportation, and only using those funds to purchase pre-made food boxes that we get from Cisco. Those boxes are 20 pounds each, which is equivalent to about 17 meals, and that they are $24 per unit. It breaks down to about 70 cents per meal. If the funding is available and the San Diego Food Bank and North County Food Bank are granted those funds, we have the expertise, distribution model and track record to turn this funding to food very quickly and help those in need. We are the right organization at the right place at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6784. Again, 6784.
Good morning. My name is Marty Martinez. County of San Diego Order of the Health Officer, effective October 10, references testing in item 7. Note, since the last supervisor meeting, the reference to PCR has been changed to nucleic acid amplification tests. Per the CDC, the RT-PCR is based on nucleic amplification technology. I have 3 concerns with item 7 of the order. First, PCR is a process. It can't tell you that you are sick. It can't tell you if what you have can make others sick. It can't tell the difference between live virus particles, or you can't tell the difference between virus particles and live virus. It should not be used as a diagnostic test. These statements are from the inventor of the PCR test, Dr. Carrie Mullis. The statements are also consistent with CDC document number CDC-006-00019, dated July 13, 2020, page 38, first bullet. Please reference it. The PCR test is an amplification process. The results can differ depending on the number of cycles. With enough cycles, 100% positive results can be achieved. Dr. Mike Eden, former Chief Science Officer of Pfizer for 16 years, says the probability of false positive is between 89 to 94%, or near certainty. Second concern, it is not clear that there has ever been a scientifically correct isolation, purification, sequencing, transmittal to healthy cells, and confirmation that the virus called SARS-CoV-2 exists and causes the disease called COVID-19. This is according to Dr. Rainer Fulmich, an attorney approved by the Board of California, who has listened to expert testimony from scientists all over the world. In my opinion, no standard means there is no valid test. Third concern, based on my research, the tests pertaining to the order have emergency use authorization, but the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendment has been waived. This amendment establishes quality standards to ensure accuracy and reliability. The amendment has been waived for the new rapid test called ID Now COVID-19. Reference the website. In conclusion, as it relates to the order, there is no emergency. The order contains items that are unconstitutional, and there are serious doubts about the validity of the testing identified in item 7. Therefore, I, as an individual, do not consent to the order, expire the order, and begin anew with constitutional government and valid medical science. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5810.
Hello, my name is Dean Haddock. Thanks, everybody. I want to start by reminding this body of the oath of office that you and your fellow California civil servants took when taking your positions as custodians of the public good. In your oath, it says you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Section 1 of the California Constitution promises citizens safety, happiness, and privacy. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution promises people the right to peaceably assemble. The Fourth and Fifth Amendments of the U.S. Constitution protect individuals' rights to property, except when removed through due process of law. No exceptions are listed for pandemics, though devastating pandemics had come and gone before these documents were written. So how is declaring businesses non-essential and shutting them down, keeping people apart, tracking them down based on their points of contact, and forcing them to wear masks and cover their faces in any way in line with the documents you swore an oath to protect? How does this not present a real and present domestic enemy to our constitutional rights? As civil servants, how can you ignore the glaring conflict between our present predicament and the legal documents that protect the rights of regular people like myself? The California Emergency Services Act is extremely broad, but it cannot legally supersede the state or U.S. Constitution, and it certainly cannot replace it indefinitely. So while you celebrate your low infection rates today, your high contact tracing rates, bravo, padlock swing sets, slow clap, innovated touchless schooling, and partially open businesses, and you continue to proudly wave the banner of saving lives, please understand that to many of us in growing numbers, you are only succeeding at destroying our lives. So I urge you to find your way to the right side of history and find more nuanced and better ways to help us get through this crisis together without forcing people, without shaming them or destroying the very lives that you are ostensibly saving. We shouldn't have to choose between our safety and the rights guaranteed to us in our founding documents. These documents aren't recommendations. They, not the governor or any of you, are the rule of law. So reopen businesses fully and compensate the business owners for the damages of this terrible, myopic public health policy. The cultural destruction that's been done already will be the compost out of which we renew together, and out of a spirit of forgiveness and community and acceptance that we can all make mistakes. I forgive you for those mistakes. You started with a prayer, and I want to end with one. I pray you do your homework and not just get your information from mainstream sources that you fancy. I pray you seek other opinions and really listen. We cannot trust big tech and big media to go deep on issues, but that doesn't absolve you of your duty to me and to us, the citizens of this county, just because you had bad information. So I pray you unlock your minds, that you unlock your hearts, that you unlock our swing sets and schools, that you unlock our churches, unlock our homes to our friends and family, unlock our lives, and unlock California. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chairman Cox.
Okay. Well, number one, thank you to the public communication speakers. We do appreciate your input. And I want to sincerely thank our staff for the presentation today, along with the panel presentation. We've got some great community partners that are an integral part of this whole effort to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I sincerely appreciate presenters and all of the community partners that we have that are out there actually doing the heavy lifting on this. I'd like to suggest that we take action on item 3 with recommendations 1 and 2 that is basically to losing it. Here we go. To receive the update on the COVID-19 response and then ratify all actions taken by the Chief Administrative Officer, the Public Health Officer, the Director of Purchasing and Contracting, and the Director, the Department of General Services in response to the local health emergency and local emergency, and that we deal with item 3 as we deal with item number 13, which will be the next item that we can consider. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that, Mr.
Okay, Supervisor Jacob has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob.
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar.
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond.
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, we'll move on now to item number 13. This is a board agenda item that was brought forward by Supervisor Jim Desmond. It's a CARES Act fund reallocation in response to unspent apportionments. And Supervisor Desmond, do you want to go ahead and make some introductory comments?
Before Supervisor Desmond begins, we have one request to speak on this item. I would like to ask the caller to dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask a couple of questions just based on the last item from staff before I go into comments and a motion. The food bank dollars. So where the $8.6 million that's left over from Great Plains, how would that be? I guess there's two main food banks or entities. There's the San Diego Food Bank and there's also the Feeding San Diego Food Bank. How would these dollars be appropriated between those two entities, or is there other entities? I'm curious how if we were to go ahead with this 8.6 million, well, I guess that's already affirmed that we're going to do that, but how is that going to be divided up between those two entities potentially?
Supervisor, this is Andy Pease. We've been in conversations with both the San Diego Food Bank and Feeding San Diego to find out what is their bandwidth, what is their ability if they were allocated additional dollars to utilize them. in the prior $3.5 million that we allocated, we allocated it equally between the two of them. What we are hearing is that we're not sure Feeding San Diego could utilize we couldn't just break it in half, depending. They have notified us that they could probably easily utilize about $1 million of that if they were given enough notice, I think by the end of October or early November. The San Diego Food Bank, as you just heard, they have indicated that they could utilize whatever you allocate to them, and they would be able to get it out into the community within time of December 30th.
Okay, and then my other question before I start is, I'm hearing about tracing could spend more money, yet in your presentation it says there's 3.8 million extra. So I'm just curious, if we were to set aside dollars for tracing, what might a reasonable amount be? Would it be the whole 3.8? Would it be $1 million? Or I'm all in favor of having them do the best and robust job they can, but I have no idea what those dollars might be.
Supervisor, the area within the T3 where we see the growth, I think we're adequately funded for trace, so where we stand as we projected. The area that has greater variance where we're going to be increasing significantly is in the testing. Our best estimates right now, based on the increased level of testing, is that we would spend, if not the entirety of that, almost most of it, of that 3.8. Hard to give you a number, but I would say based on what we're talking about of the additional testing sites we're adding, we would, at the rate anticipation of the audience, we would spend that entire amount by this calendar year of the 3.8 million.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. I was just curious what that number might be. So I appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. This board letter addresses the CARES Act dollars, that have been appropriated by this board, but not spent to date. And we do face a deadline at the end of this calendar year to use the money or lose it. It goes back to the state or feds. And we only have 3 board meetings between now and the end of the year. So I think we need to act swiftly and use that money to the greatest good here in San Diego County. So with this board letter, I'm presenting a proposal to reapportion the funds to ensure that with our past actions. So first of all, I want to propose the spending of those dollars, reaffirming the 8.6 left over from the Great Plates program that the board already gave direction and took action on to go to the San Diego food banks. I'm okay with the, keeping $1.6 million aside until early December. And if that money is not spent, that it sounds like San Diego Food Bank can use those dollars and put those to use very quickly if all 1.6 is not left there. I think with the loss of federal CARES Act dollars, there's more and more people, particularly middle management people and working class people, without the CARES Act payroll protections anymore. We're going to have a lot more people becoming poor and food dependent. You got the airlines, Disneyland, mom and pop and large chain restaurants and the event business, all losing that CARES Act payroll protection. And we'll all face shortages of the basics in life, including food. So I want to propose moving that keeping that 8.6 million going to the food banks, and we're holding back 1.6 as Supervisor Jacob had recommended until December, and then hopefully then it would go to the food banks if not spent. And then secondly, to take the $5 million left over from the telehealth behavioral health program and put those dollars towards rental assistance for behavioral health patients. And they understand that the behavioral health folks and the housing folks are working together to spend those dollars within the behavioral health infrastructure. So, and for that, I think we really have to continue to meet the need for rental assistance, for behavioral health programs and patients. And then I guess the last part is I'm proposing to take $3.8 million, which is the county's response dollars, and not take the T3 dollars, 3.8 million, and the 1.6 million left over from the Child Welfare Economic Stimulus Services, and the 1.1 million in interest gained, which is approximately I think it's about 6.5 million, to go to the economic stimulus grant program. And the reason for that is, many of our businesses and employees, have been shut down or partially shut down. And after being told, there was only going to be 2 weeks, many of these businesses are just still bleeding dollars from the lack of being able to open. In the last economic stimulus dollars that we had, my office alone, we received $180 million in requests for grants that we only had like $4.1 million from each office to give out. I had 180 in requests, and I know all the other offices had a large request. So the need is out there. And the businesses are hurting, and it's obvious, that they need our help. And I realize that, the Great Lakes were helping out restaurants. This economic stimulus dollars could go to restaurants. So I think it's the best to help those struggling businesses with the county's, economic stimulus that we had performed before, and putting those dollars left over from the, let me do my math here again real quick. I think it's 3.8 plus 1.6 plus 1.1. Oh, that's $5.9 million. I apologize. $5.9 million. Nope, sorry, did it again. 4.9 plus 1.1.
That's 6.5.
Supervisor?
What you got as far as a total? I'm doing public math, which is bad.
Maybe, could I suggest maybe we've got, I think, one public communication speaker, plus I think there was one that we missed from the last item, which I think probably is going to be addressing these same issues. Why don't we go ahead and hear those?
Chairman, if I could, I'd like to make a motion though, for the 8.6 million for the to go to the food banks, and they leaving the 1.6 million, as I said before, the 5 million from the telehealth to the rental assistance, and the money left over after taking out the T3 dollars to go to the economic stimulus program.
How much would that be, Supervisor Desmond?
All right, here, I'm trying again, public math here, 3.8, 3.8 plus 1.6 plus 1.1. All right, 6.5 million.
Can you restate the totals for me, just so we know what we're considering?
On all of them? Okay. So
it's your board letter, it's your motion, so we should know what it is you're proposing.
Can I make a suggestion before you get into that? It might be easier if we were all looking at page 34 on the last presentation, so that we have the figures that staff is working with that are the actuals. Because I know there was some variation between your board letter and what the staff had indicated.
Well, and it is, so the county response dollars, if you want to look at that 3.8 would go to economic stimulus. Okay. Then if you look at the test, trace, and leave that where it is.
Okay.
Behavioral health capacities, that would go to, or the telehealth would go to rental assistance.
For behavioral health rental assistance?
Yeah. Child welfare outreach, economic stimulus. Great Plates, go to food banks. Great Plates 2, food banks, but leaving 1.6 aside until December. And then the trust fund interest earned, economic stimulus. So essentially it'd still be 8.6 to the food banks, 5 to rental assistance, 6.5 to economic stimulus. That'd be my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no discussion right now, why don't we go ahead and hear the two public speakers, and then we can get into the discussions.
Mr. Chairman, we had one request to speak on this item. That individual had called in, but it appears that the individual has left the call. at this time.
Okay, was there one other one that we missed on the last, that called in late on the last item?
There was not, Mr. Chairman. We heard from all the speakers that requested to speak.
Okay, so we have no other speakers on this item?
That's right.
Okay. Let me suggest, because I think I'd come up with a little bit different allocation on some of those things, but maybe if we could get some concurrence on those that we all agree. It certainly seems that the keeping the 3.8 million for the T3 testing and keeping the 5 million for behavioral health, but really allowing that to be used for rental assistance. And I would like to, I think we still ought to be keeping the 1.6 million for child welfare services. So I would like to amend the motion on the floor to include the continued funding for those 3 items, and then the residual that's left would be available for the things that have been talked about, food banks and continuing portions of the Great Lakes. And there may be some other ones, obviously the economic stimulus. So I would make that as an amendment to the motion on the floor. Just those 3 things: retaining the T3 testing, retaining the behavioral health, but allow it to be used for rental assistance, and 1.6 million for child welfare services, and then we can talk about the others.
I would be supportive of that, Mr. Chair. I would just add, I think we want to give child welfare the flexibility to use some of that for stipends for child care providers and our resource families and group homes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, did you have rental assistance in there or not? It was just the
I do not at this point, other than the behavioral health item.
Okay, so it's the 5 million for behavioral health, 1.6 for child welfare with the flexibility, and then the 3.8 for the testing and tracing. That's it. I'll support that.
Yep.
Is that a substitute motion?
Well, yeah, I guess it is, because we're going to have other items that we're going to be talking about. So, yes.
Clarity on that. You only want to, you don't want to vote on all of them at this point in time. You only want to vote on a few.
Well, I think it's going to be easier if we can knock off the ones we agree on, and then we can have some discussions on the remaining ones, which I think there's a growing consensus that there's going to be a need for more funding for economic stimulus, for the Great Lakes, Great Plates program, food banks, and the other one that I would like to talk a little bit about is the rental assistance. So I thought we could get rid of the ones that I think there's concurrence on.
I'll second that motion. I think that's a good way to proceed, because I have some comments I'd like to make too.
Okay.
I have a further
discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
So you want to, the substitute motion is to, I mean, could you repeat it, I guess, so I get it straight then?
Yeah, this is going to be a kind of a serial set of motions. So the first motion right now would be to retain the funding for the T3 testing, the 3.8 million.
Okay.
To retain the 5 million for behavioral health, but to allow that to also to be used for rental assistance within the behavioral health area, and to retain the 1.6 million for child welfare services, but also to allow some flexibility for childcare.
What about the food bank dollars?
Okay, we're going to do with that after this motion.
You know, I don't know. I think this is too much of a piecemeal, because I don't know what you want to do with the other ones before I support this one. So
well, then I guess you vote no.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
No.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes with Vice Chairman Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
Okay, the other areas that were talked about, and I think, there's room for discussion, is Supervisor Jacob had requested retention of 1.6 million for Great Plates. Obviously, there would be an ability, if those funds aren't used, to go to the food banks. I would like to suggest that maybe we allocate a total of 7 million for economic stimulus. We allocate 3 million for rental assistance, the 1.6 million for Great Plates, 2 million to the food banks, with the proviso that if the Great Plates money isn't used, that it would be rolled over to the food banks. And I realize that that's actually a total, when you add the other action we took, it's 13.6 million, not the 13, excuse me, not the, well, that's a total of 13.5 million. And when you include the money that we just took action on, it's $100,000 over the 23.9, but that's just a rounding error. So that would be my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to second that. And I have some comments I'd like to make. We learned a lot since the time that we originally allocated the CARES Act money. And Andy did a great job of putting up the chart and what's been spent, what hasn't been spent. And looking at that chart, the money that was exhausted very quickly was rent, childcare, and of course, economic stimulus. I mean, we all have had a huge demand from our businesses for help for our businesses. And I would like to put more into the economic stimulus. I'd go up to 10 million, but 7 million's fine. But it looks like the Great Plates program doesn't need as much money as we thought that it might need. And so, as you articulated very well, that we have 7 million then left there when we take the 1.6 out and then reallocate that, say December 8th, I guess it would be, when we know whether or not the states and the feds are going to continue with Great Plates money. And then that would go to the food bank. I don't have a problem with the 2 million, extra 2 million going to the food bank. I guess my preference would be, and I second the motion for discussion because we all have our ideas here. I certainly will support that in the end, but I think the greater need is in the economic stimulus. So maybe there's some thought about putting that 2 million, since the food banks have gotten quite a bit anyway, and then they're going to get almost the 1.6 million perhaps out of that. The rental, definitely, there's a huge demand. So yeah, I mean, unless there's an interest to take that 2 million that is in your motion from the food bank and put it into economic stimulus. If there's no other interest in that, I'm fine with your motion as it is.
Mr. Chairman, can I continue for a minute? I just want to clarify the numbers because I'm afraid you might be overstating in your motion. So could you go through your numbers one more time so that we can make sure that it reflects the actual numbers? Because the action you just took was 3.8 to keep it in T3, 5 to keep it in behavioral health but allow it for rental assistance, and 1.6 in the CWS line item for a total of 10.4. And so what you have left to allocate potentially is 13.5. And I thought I heard you have a higher number than that. So I'd like you to clarify that so we make sure we're all in sync.
Well, to clarify that, if there was 3 million for rental assistance, and this would be really in a continuation or an expansion of our emergency rental assistance program, I think we allocated, $24 million for that, but I know that the applications that have come in have just about used that all up. And I think there's a continuing need for that. So it was 3 million for the rental, emergency rental assistance program, 7 million for the economic stimulus, 1.6 million for the Great Plates, and 2 million for the food banks. That would be a total of 13.6, which is 100,000 over the allocation that you have there. But again,
Okay,
it's a rounding error.
That the rounding will work on, not to worry. I just wanted to clarify that. So yes, okay, thank you very much. That matches our
Okay.
numbers. Thank you.
All right, further discussion?
Chair, I'm supportive of that. I do think it'd be good. Our food banks are doing a lot. I think if we can provide some help and assistance, they're going to run out of some current funding that's there. So I think $2 million to allocate there while we prop up or hold open the Great Plates program and give us the largest portion of this towards economic relief and assistance, I think is good. I'd also just note rental assistance is also a form of economic assistance that's going directly to landlords and tenants. And I think it has the same impact of supporting businesses who are there. And so I think this is overwhelmingly economic assistance in terms of what we're doing with just a little bit of help there for our food banks.
Okay, further discussion? Supervisor Desmond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to make sure that the Great Plates dollars, if unused, that they go to the food banks if that comes out sometime in December.
That's
right?
included in the motion.
Okay. Well, quite frankly, I like the fact that more is going to economic stimulus. So not knowing where you were going to go in the second part of the motion, I'll be supporting the second part of the motion, but not knowing that ahead of time, I wasn't sure where you were going. So I appreciate what you put forward and support it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob.
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar.
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond.
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 14. This is a resolution requesting local consultation and the use of hospital capacity metrics for the California COVID-19 health order. This was brought forward by Vice Chairman Jim Desmond. Supervisor Desmond, you want to go ahead and introduce this item?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is an item where recommendation for our Chief Administrative Officer to draft a resolution to the board, to the board, which ratifies and supports the public health officer's professional guidance, potentially provides the value of the full support of the board of supervisors. Today's action would create a resolution to request a more local consultation and metrics for reopening based on medical system capacity and known and obtainable testing goals. Local consultation and clearly defined metrics and expectations will help our region's economy to recover and for our businesses to safely open. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion and just go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to you for co-chairing this item, Supervisor Gasper. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. I'll second the motion and just add that we're grateful for our public health officer who's been consistently at the table with the California Department of Public Health. This resolution would provide the strength of the backing the board for what she's already articulating at the table. You're seeing other urban counties developing similar resolutions, and the point is that they want to indicate to the governor and the state that they do have the support and alignment of their boards with the public health officer as well. Hospital capacity, as you know, is very important in this response. And I'm grateful for our public health officer for recognizing that there should be some adjustment factor for when counties have good hospital capacity. Obviously, hospital capacity isn't everything. She's indicated on multiple occasions it's a lagging indicator, but there should be some way to credit counties where hospital capacity is holding strong. So again, this resolution would reinforce the message of our public health officer only. I would assume that she would be working closely with our CAO in the development of this resolution so that it represents her positions, which are very important and the most important thing. And I do think it's important for our board to support her in her efforts. Thank you.
I have a question.
I believe. We do have one speaker on this. Supervisor Fletcher, do you want to?
I'll wait.
The question? Okay. Let me go ahead and ask the clerk if he would call up the one speaker we have on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The speaker has dialed in. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted, and then you'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone. I will ask you to please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. 7244, you may proceed.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Wade, and I'm calling today on behalf of the Hospital Association of San Diego and Imperial Counties. We were surprised to see item 14 on the board agenda and are still unclear on exactly what's being proposed. The state has established already science and operationally based metrics that we believe we should continue to follow. Hospital capacity can be very complicated to measure because a number of factors must be taken into consideration, including available staffing. In addition, capacity measures may change periodically to increase for planning of surges and decrease when those surges are diminished. We want to thank Dr. Wooten because hospitals send updates on bed capacity as part of our daily communication with Dr. Wooten and her team at County Public Health. Our members work very closely with Public Health to develop and monitor metrics that support local decision making. Thanks for the opportunity to comment, and to the Board of Supervisors for your continued partnership with hospitals and health systems. Thanks.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chairman Cox.
Okay. Supervisor Fletcher.
Yeah, do we have a copy of the resolution we're voting on?
We're asking the CAO to bring it forward.
To bring it back to us?
Yes.
So to draft a resolution and bring it back for us to consider? And the resolution would just be, as I read it, which ratifies and supports the public health officer's professional guidance?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get that at our next board meeting, I suppose.
Right.
Okay. Hey, you know, resolutions are good. It's different. We're usually doing letters. Maybe we run out of stamps for sending letters to the governor. So now let's do a resolution. I think a resolution supporting our public health officer and what she thinks is a positive step forward. I'm old enough to remember when this board was voting to go hire independent data people to question the integrity of our public health officer, and old enough to remember when our public health experts had to spend their time during the day going to reporters to fact check false statements made by members of this board, or when members of this board were saying what day they wanted certain things open. So I think a resolution of the Board of Supervisors in support of the guidance of our public health officer is a wonderful thing. And I certainly look forward to seeing it when it comes back to the next board meeting. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Jacob?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank the two supervisors, Desmond and Gaspar, for bringing this forward. I think we should have included in the motion, though, to have this come back on what date, what board meeting date?
Our next board meeting would be October 27th.
Okay, so that should be included in the motion to bring the resolution back on October 27th for the board's approval.
Actually, this would be the 25th, right? No, 27th, that's right.
Okay, so is that included in the motion?
Let me ask Helen if that's enough time.
Yes, Supervisor, that would be plenty of time. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and include the motion.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I do think the resolution supporting our public health officer and our CAO and the staff is a very good thing to do. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I'll look forward to the resolution on the 27th.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, second by Supervisor Gaspar to have staff bring back a resolution. I want to apologize to Supervisor Gaspar. I forgot to acknowledge that this board letter is co-doctored by Supervisor Desmond and Supervisor Gaspar. My mistake. But we do have a motion and a second. If there is no further discussion.
I just wanted to, Chairman, I just wanted to clarify for the record that at no point in time was a statistician ever desired to challenge our epidemiology team. They do a fine job. As we saw at the board meeting in September, the point was to provide a holistic overview of the health of our region, which includes the impacts of the pandemic that aren't health-related, directly tied to COVID-19, but the other impacts that are out there, food insecurity, for example, child abuse, abuse statistics, all of those things that were robustly presented in September. So I just want to make sure that the public is clear on what was being asked and what was provided. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, the last action item that we have before us today is item number 4. This is a notice of a public hearing for the selection of the first 8 members of the County of San Diego Independent Redistricting Commission by random drawing and establish appropriations for support of the Independent Redistricting Commission. This is a new procedure for us. This is a result of state legislation. I believe Assemblymember Shirley Weber carried this forward. And what we are going to do today is ask our clerk of the board to go ahead and explain what he's going to be doing with the random drawing. It's my understanding that he has 5 different containers that have the names of the people that have submitted and been screened for service on the redistricting committee. Those 5 containers are set up by supervisorial districts, and he will be drawing from them 1 name from each canister, and then they'll all be poured back together, and he'll draw another 3 at large. I hope I didn't screw that up too much, Mr. Potter, but go ahead and take it away from this point forward.
Thank you, Chairman Cox and members of the board. The item before you today is to observe the random selection of individuals to serve on the county's Independent Redistricting Commission. I'll provide a brief overview of the process, and then we will conduct the random drawing from the podium. Following the random drawing, your board will be asked to take actions that we will outline in this presentation. By way of background, every 10 years after the federal census, district boundaries for federal, state, and local elected offices are redrawn to reflect new population data and shifting populations to ensure equal voter representation to the extent possible. This process is called redistricting. The California Elections Code and the county charter set forth the rules for drawing the supervisorial boundaries and provides that the responsibility to draw the new supervisorial district boundaries rests with the county's Independent Redistricting Commission. The commission is made up of 14 members. 8 members will be selected at random today. 6 additional commissioners will be selected by the 8 randomly selected commissioners. These selections will be made from a pool of the 60 most qualified applicants. The Elections Code specifies that the commission members shall be as proportional as possible in terms of the political parties as the number of registered voters in the last statewide election. Also, the Elections Code states that the commission should reflect the county's diversity in terms of racial, ethnic, geographic, and gender diversity. To be eligible for the commission, applicants must have been a resident in the county, a registered voter with the same party or no party preference for at least 5 years, voted in one of the last 3 statewide elections, cannot be an elected official, a past elected official, a candidate, or have worked for an elected official in the last 10 years. This applies to family members as well. Applicants must also have experience that demonstrates analytical skills that are relevant to redistricting, have experience that demonstrates an ability to be impartial, and have experience that demonstrates an appreciation for the diverse demographics and geography of the county. This is a brief overview of our timeline for the selection process that began back in February 2020. Once the application period closed, we scored the applications to select the 60 most qualified applicants. Then we will randomly select 8 commissioners today. These 8 commissioners will then meet to select 6 additional commissioners from the pool of 52 applicants. The full commission must be formed by December 31st, 2020. We conducted an extensive outreach campaign. We developed an email distribution list of over 5,000 individuals. This email list included members of county boards, commissions, and committees, school district officials, special districts, city clerks, elected officials in the county, voter advocacy groups, local community organizations that participated in the census outreach efforts, and anyone that previously applied for the county's community enhancement grant funding because they represented a wide variety of organizations. We partnered with the state auditor in the city of San Diego to send notifications to individuals that applied for both commissions. We presented information about the commission and the application process during virtual events that were hosted by community organizations. We utilize social media with posts on Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor, and Instagram, and the Communications Office posted articles on the County News Center site. Next, we're going to talk about the applicant pool. And for that portion, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Assistant Clerk of the Board, Erin Demarest, while I move to the podium for the drawing.
Thank you. We received a total of 291 applications. We want to thank all the individuals who applied. Of those, 231 met the minimum qualifications and were therefore eligible. We verified the applicant's voter registration status with the Registrar of Voters, rated the eligible applications, and in accordance with the Elections Code, identified the 60 most qualified applicants. Per state law, the names and applications of the 60 most qualified applicants were posted online for a minimum of 30 days. Today, we will be conducting a random drawing as required by the Elections Code. Each of the 60 qualified applicants has been randomly assigned a number within district subpools that correspond to bingo balls. One applicant withdrew his name because he was appointed to the City of San Diego's Redistricting Commission. Therefore, we have 59 names for the drawings. We will conduct a total of 8 drawings. First, each applicant has been placed in subpools by district. We will start by drawing one name from each of the 5 subpools. Then we will place the remaining applicants in the hopper to draw 3 additional names. We will be showing the names and the randomly assigned numbers on the screen so that everyone can follow along. This is a list of all 59 applicants and their corresponding randomly assigned numbers by district. The balls are also organized by district with corresponding colors for each district. I will ask the Communications Office to show the board so that the public can see that the numbered balls match the applicant list shown on the screen. The assigned colors are as follows. District 1 is blue. District 2 is red. District 3 is green. District 4 is white. District 5 is yellow. And now, before we begin the random drawing, are there any questions from members of the board? Chairman Cox, hearing none, we will proceed to the random drawing. So I'll turn it back over to Andrew Potter and Chief Deputy Clerk of the Board, Marvise Mazek, to conduct the first drawing.
Thank you, Erin. We will begin with District 1. I'll place the numbers that correspond to the most qualified applicants from District 1 in the hopper, and then we will draw one number, and I'll read the number and the corresponding name to announce the applicant that will be appointed to the commission. The number that was randomly selected was number 6. That number was randomly assigned to David Boehm. David Boehm will represent District 1. Next, we will move on to District 2. Again, we'll place all the numbers that correspond to the most qualified applicants from District 2 in the hopper, and we will draw one number, and I'll read the number and the corresponding name to announce that applicant who will be appointed to the commission. The number that was randomly selected is number 28. Number 28 corresponds to John Russ. John Russ will represent District 2. Next, we'll move on to District 3. Again, place all the numbers that correspond to the most qualified applicants from District 3 in the hopper, and we'll draw one number and read the number and the corresponding name to announce the applicant will be appointed to the commission. The number that was randomly selected is number 55. Number 55 corresponds to Amy Katerina. Amy Katerina will represent District 3. Next, we'll move on to District 4. And again, we'll place all the numbers that correspond to the most qualified applicants from District 4 in the hopper. And we'll draw one number and read the number and the corresponding name to announce the applicant that will be appointed to the commission. And the number that was randomly selected is number 41. Number 41 corresponds to Barbara Hansen. Barbara Hansen will represent District 4. And then finally, we will place numbers that correspond to the most qualified applicants from District 5 into the hopper. And again, we will draw one number, and I'll read the number and the corresponding name to announce the applicant that will be appointed to the commission. And the number that was randomly assigned is number 64. That corresponds to Chris Chen. Chris Chen will represent District 5. And now we will place all the remaining numbers for the most qualified applicants that were not randomly selected into the hopper to draw 3 names. The first randomly drawn number is number 72. That number is randomly assigned to Colleen Brown. Next, we will draw one more additional name or number. The next randomly assigned number is number 37. Number 37 corresponds to Arvid Larson. And the last randomly drawn number is number 44. Number 44 corresponds to Sonia Diaz. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the random drawings today. I'll confirm for the record that the following individuals were randomly selected to serve on the county's Independent Redistricting Commission: David Boehm, John Russ, Amy Katerina, Arvid Larson, Barbara Hansen, Sonia Diaz, Chris Chen, and Colleen Brown. I'll now turn it back over to Erin to review the next steps of the selection process.
Thank you. Next, the 8 commissioners that were randomly selected today will meet in late October and again in November to review the remaining applicants to select 6 additional applicants to the commission. The 8 commissioners will be selecting the 6 appointees based on the requirements described in the Elections Code and on this slide. The full commission must be seated by December 31st, 2020. The commission will be responsible for establishing the 5 single-member supervisorial districts for the board pursuant to a mapping process using criteria outlined in the Elections Code. All meetings of the commission will be public. The new district maps must be filed with the clerk of the board by December 15th, 2021. I'll now turn it back to Andrew to conclude.
Thank you, Erin. Mr. Chairman, at this time, it would be appropriate for the board to take action as recommended to note your observations of the random drawings. Additionally, we are asking your board to appropriate $750,000 as the preliminary budget for the required support of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the balance of the recommendations on item number 4?
So moved.
So moved. Supervisor Gaspar, second.
Here's what I found.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Very good. That completes the agenda items we have to deal with today. I'm going to suggest we go ahead and continue closed session until tomorrow after the land use hearing. That I think it's a relatively light hearing at that time. But we do have 3 adjournments in memory, and I'll first call on Supervisor Diane Jacob for her adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very sad to adjourn this portion of our meeting in memory of Sherry Johnson. Sherry was a founding president of the Friends of the Rancho San Diego Library. She was born in New Jersey, graduated from Madison High in 1965, and she earned her bachelor's degree from San Diego State University in 1971. Sherry's love of books likely came from her mother teaching her to read before she started school, and the fact that books were scarce when she grew up in New Jersey. Sherry worked as a library technician for the San Diego County Library System, and she dedicated herself to ensuring that free access to information was available to everyone. After retiring, Sherry formed the Friends of the Rancho San Diego Library, which is a nonprofit group, and that was in 1999. She recruited many friends who were also dedicated readers and wanted a library in their community. She was a volunteer with the Friends of that library for 21 years and served as the bookstore manager since 2002. When it opened, the bookstore has brought so much joy and education over the last 2 decades to many. Sherry successfully advocated for the expansion of the Friends Bookstore at the Rancho San Diego branch. She also recently helped revive the Castioro Friends of the Library group in preparation for the new library there. Sherry's support and fundraising efforts have benefited the library and the community by providing many programs, performers, and additions to the library's collection. It was a great pleasure for me over the years to work with Sherry Johnson, and she certainly will be missed. And she was so instrumental in the library in Rancho San Diego. She's survived by her husband of 52 years, Bill. And again, I want to take a moment to thank Sherry and her family for her service, and she will be missed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. I have 2 adjournments in memory today that I'd like to present to the board at this time. First, I'd like to adjourn this portion of today's meeting in memory of Manuel Memo Cavada, an Air Force veteran, professional photographer, and beloved member of the community. He passed away on October 3rd at the age of 76. Memo was born in National City. He graduated from Sacramento City College and the Glenn Fishback School of Photography in Ventura. He served 4 years in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War, and he received the Purple Heart or being wounded in action during that conflict. Photography was his passion, and he owned Creative Images Photo Studio in National City for over 30 years. He was South County's unofficial photographer, present at seemingly every community event and function, often donating his time. He taught photography at the Centro Cultural de la Raza in Balboa Park and served as the youth program director for the neighborhood house in San Diego. He was active in the community, volunteering with numerous organizations and serving on many committees. With his camera, Memo Cavada told the story of an entire region, capturing its tragedies and celebrations, its moments and its milestones. He was a friend to everyone he met, and we will dearly miss him. The second adjournment in memory that I have is for Roger Scott McTighe. Roger was a resident of Bonita, a beloved member of the community. He passed away on September 27th at the age of 59. Mr. McTighe graduated from National University with a bachelor's degree in business and was a successful telecommunications salesman for more than 30 years. He loved golfing, sailing, playing baseball, and many other activities. Excuse me. He was a loving father, son, husband, grandfather, and uncle. Mr. McTighe is survived by his parents, Roger and Nancy McTighe, his son, Roger James McTighe, his daughter, Melissa Allen, his sister, Mary Chris, and many others. And he also will be dearly missed. So we're going to stand adjourned until tomorrow. We'll go ahead and deal with the closed session items tomorrow after the land use hearing. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for that land use hearing. Unless there's any further communications from Mr. Potter, is there anything else we need to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, then we will stand adjourned to the meeting of October 14th, 2020. Meeting is adjourned.